Oh.
Begin the February 17th, 2021 voting meeting in the Shaler Area School District. Before we begin and before we start with any public comment, we do have a presentation that Dr. Aiken and Dr. O'Black would like to present. So we'll allow them to do that first.
Do you want to do the pledge first? We can do that.
Oh, sure. We can start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah.
Flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Want me to move up to the other also? Can we do the roll call ahead of time also, Ms. Ludwig?
Thank you, Mr. Tunstall. Mrs. Donahue? Mrs. Donahue?
Here.
Mr. Fisher? Mr. Fisher?
Unmuted, present.
Dr. Kwiatkowski, Mr. Gatsky, I'm sorry. Went out of order. Mr. Gatsky?
I'm here.
Dr. Kwiatkowski?
Here.
Mr. Majewski?
Here.
Mrs. Petrovich?
Present.
Mrs. Phillips?
Here.
Mr. Romack?
Here.
Mr. Tunstall?
Here.
All in attendance.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Dr. O'Black and I are going to share a presentation with the school board tonight related to the district transition to 4-day instruction. And we'll have the opportunity for public comment afterwards and any questions that the board may have as well. Just to review the public comment section, a public comment period will occur following the presentation from the administration. Guidelines will be shared regarding commenting procedures. And during the presentation, please keep your microphones muted. Thank you very much. All right, so the purpose of this presentation tonight is to identify that we as a school district, the Shaler Area School District, intend to return to 4-day per week in-person instruction to provide the structure and educational services needed for our youngest learners and our most vulnerable learners in our school district. One of the other transition goals that we have is to balance meeting the needs of our students and parents, the community, and protecting the health and safety of our school district students, staff, and entire school community. The third transition goal that we're going to cover tonight is identifying the safety and security for our entire school community and identifying that this is going to remain our top priority during all instructional modes of operation. At this time, Dr. O'Black is going to share some of the results from the recent parent guardian survey.
Thank you, Dr. Aiken. In February 2021, the school district issued a survey to families regarding the possibility of transitioning to 4-day in-person instruction. There were a series of questions, and we have summarized them this evening for the board. It's important to note that on the scale, the Likert scale that was used for the survey, 1 is a selection of not comfortable, 5 was a selection of very comfortable based on the specific question. So the district had over 2,692 responses to the parent survey. The first question was, how comfortable are you with returning your child to 4-day-a-week in-person instruction while the county is still designated as being in a substantial level of transmission? Of those that responded, 591 indicated that they were not comfortable. That represented 22% of the respondents. As you see, about 154 respondents, or about 5.7, indicated a 2. 248 respondents, or roughly 9.2%, indicated a 3. And 443, or 16.5%, indicated a 4. And 1,256 respondents, or roughly 46.7%, indicated a 5, being very comfortable. The next question that was asked, again, using the Likert scale of 1 being not comfortable and 5 being very comfortable, how comfortable are you with the district deviating from the CDC recommendation of 6 feet of social distancing in order to facilitate 4-day-a-week in-person instruction? Of the 2,692 responses, 702, or 26.1%, said that they were not comfortable. 174, or 6.5%, indicated a 2. 317, or 11.8%, indicated 3. 453, or roughly 16.8%, indicated a 4. And 1,046, or 38.9% of respondents indicated a 5, being very comfortable. The district asked if we are to transition to 4-day-a-week in-person instruction, and understanding 6 feet of social distancing would not be possible on the school bus. Again, looking at transportation concerns, would your child require district-provided transportation? The red on top, roughly 45.2%, indicated that their children would not need district transportation, and 54.8% said that their children would need transportation. Again, understanding that 6 feet of social distancing would not be feasible. If the district transitions to 4-day-a-week in-person instruction, I would opt for my child too. 74.6% of the respondents indicated that they would have their children attend school 4 days a week, even if 6 feet of social distancing could not be achieved. And 25.4% indicated that they would remain in or transition to 100% virtual learning.
So one of the questions that we've asked is why would we look at transitioning to 4-day instruction at this time? And as we get to the end of the presentation today, you'll see that we have a phased approach to transitioning students into the 4-day instructional model. One of our thoughts from the very beginning was recognizing the needs of our youngest learners, the direct contact with teachers, thinking about the social engagement with their peers, the level of independence or dependence, I should say, on teachers and that interaction and the social interactions that are needed. We also recognize what the data says that the spread of COVID-19 with and among elementary age students is significantly lower than that of secondary age students. We have concerns as the survey identified that social distancing is still something that we're going to need to constantly monitor and address to the greatest extent feasible. But we recognize that close to 30% of our students will opt into Cohort C. So the classrooms will not be as crowded as they normally would be in a traditional school year. And there'll be probably about 70 to 75% of our students in that 4-day instructional model. So with the class sizes being a little bit less than normal, it will allow us to do a better job of socially distancing, but we recognize that this still is an area of concern for our staff, for our students, and our families. And we'll continue to look at this specifically in areas like the classroom, the school bus, and the hallways, and also the cafeteria. We just recognize that our students do best when they're in school, especially the students at the youngest age level. And having that direct contact with their teachers and their peers on a daily basis is extremely important. So just looking at the data over the past 14-day period, as you can see, the breakdown by school right now, we've had high positive case counts at the high school recently, and especially over the past 9 days since we shut down. Of those 19 cases there, we've had 13 just occur since last Monday. Obviously at the middle school and the elementary school, both schools have recently endured a shutdown, and so they've been reset and they're at 0 right now. Looking at Birchfield, Marzoff, Reserve, and Scott Primary, we do have positive cases in those schools, but they're relatively low at this time. On the right there, you can see the total number of confirmed cases, 39, resolved 11. Students, we have 33, resolved 7, and staff cases, we have 6, and we have 4 resolved cases as well. The dashboard's been helpful for us. We've heard from a lot of families that they use it frequently and really have found it to be beneficial. And I know that it's going to be something that we continue to monitor closely so that we keep our schools, our staff, and our students safe. So just recently, I would say probably back in the month of January, Dr. Rachel Levine came out with a statement. And this statement actually appeared in the Post-Gazette and also at the state level, Pennsylvania Department of Health. And one of the statements that they made back in January was the importance of the mitigation efforts in masking, physical distancing, hand washing, just recognizing the importance of having younger children, particularly elementary age students or elementary grade students return to in-person instruction. So there's been a lot of discussion around this, is how can we get our youngest learners into more in-person schooling right now. As I mentioned on one of the previous slides, Cohort C is still an option, a virtual option for our students and families. We've tried to make this process as seamless as possible this year, recognizing the importance of that connection to the classroom teachers. Students in Cohort C will remain in Cohort C for as long as they need to. And if they don't feel comfortable coming into school, they'll still have the same schedule that they've been having for the past 6 months or so. Once again, they'll be engaging in virtual instruction Monday through Friday. And also, a lot of the same, we recognize that there are some families who are in Cohort A or Cohort B that may opt for Cohort C as we make this transition to more in-person instruction. And this model was set up to be flexible and help our students and families make that decision. And also recognizing that students in Cohort C could be in Cohort C for a variety of reasons, whether it's related to quarantine and periods of isolation. So that's important to note as well.
So as we look to transition to 4-day in-person instruction, we will be instituting altered mitigation strategies, and those include some things that will remain the same. First, students and staff will be required to continue to adhere to the universal face masking order as outlined by the Department of Health. Physical distancing of 6 feet in school cafeterias will remain a requirement in order for students to remove their face masks for covering. Cafeteria spaces may, and in many cases, will look different even than they currently do in our hybrid instruction model. Additionally, the district will maintain 6 feet of physical distance between individuals to the highest extent possible. As we outlined in the parent survey this winter, The district will be unable to accommodate 6 feet of physical distancing in all scenarios, particularly in some of our classroom spaces throughout the school district. Additionally, as it relates to student transportation, capacity limits on our school bus routes will need to increase as we are bringing more students into our buildings each day. Students will once again share seats on the school bus, and we are looking at up to 2 students may share a seat on a bus, and up to 3 primary elementary school age siblings can share a seat on a school bus when feasible.
So one of the questions that's often asked along these same lines is what cleaning procedures are going to take place? How are classrooms going to be disinfected? Bathrooms, hallways, lockers, areas, high-touch surface areas. And as what's been demonstrated previously in board meetings will continue. All spaces are cleaned and sanitized daily by our custodial staff. Looking at classrooms, desks, hallways, bathrooms, constantly being evaluated and inspected. A checklist is done by our custodial staff each day to make sure that they're hitting and cleaning all these key spaces. Individual classrooms have disinfectant spray and wipes to use as needed throughout the day.
I was going to take him down before Josh's game today.
We also have hired a number of part-time custodians that help support in schools throughout the course of the day, especially in areas like the cafeteria and bathrooms and hallways. And again, some of the products that we're using, hospital-grade electrostatic sprayers, been used in the classrooms and high-touch areas on a daily basis, also on our school buses as well. It's been demonstrated by ABC Transit. Looking at face coverings, as we heard last week, from Katie Clark, our student rep to the board, this is such an important mitigation effort, mitigation strategy. And this is outlined in the attestation agreement that we've signed and submitted to the Department of Health. And we follow the universal face covering order that was updated on November 18th, 2020. I know prior to that, we had some staff members and students that were wearing face shields, and we focused mainly on the cloth mask now that cover the face. Some of the areas that we recognize when students are eating or drinking, or staff is eating and drinking, students need to be, and staff needs to be 6 feet or more apart. This is important that this is the only time other than the mask breaks where wearing a mask or taking the mask off is permitted. Once again, just another point there that I just mentioned, at least 6 feet apart during the face covering breaks, no longer than 10 minutes. So this is important throughout the course of the day too, that we allow students to have these face covering breaks. One of the items that we really wanted to emphasize tonight, especially in light of everything that's happening at the high school, is the daily symptom screening. And we've reviewed this on numerous occasions in presentations with the board, with staff, with families. But I think it goes without saying that this is critical for our success in the 4-day instructional model. We continue to encourage our families to conduct the daily screenings before sending their child to school each day. This is critical for us to be successful in the 4-day model, recognizing that there's going to be more students, more interactions, at times closer, less social distance that we're able to adhere to. And it's absolutely important that if a child has one of these symptoms in group A or 2 or more symptoms in group B, they please stay home. And this applies to staff as well. In order for us to continue to move forward as a district and keep these positive case numbers down, it's important that we follow this, all of us follow this daily symptom screening. Let me see if there's anything else. I think that covered everything. And once again, we've reiterated this point on numerous occasions in here. Our school nurses have been amazing throughout this entire process. They really work closely together as a team. They are truly collaborative. They work with the administration, with the staff, with families, with students. And please, if you travel outside of Pennsylvania, if you have any questions at all, I would ask that you contact your school nurse and continue to keep that line of communication open. I'm trying to see if there's anything else there that's critical. If there's any member of the household test positive, that's another area. Please stay in communication with the school nurse. It's one of the things that we're encouraging our families, staff members to communicate with us, with the school nurses. And again, they have been extremely valuable members of our team through this process and really have done a great job in contact tracing and recommending quarantines and isolation, and really working closely with the Allegheny County Health Department for issues that occur in the school or possibly due to travel. So back in November, we talked about this attestation agreement, and this agreement really binds the district to really follow the mitigation efforts that were outlined, especially around universal face covering and following the identification of case counts, the 14-day ruling periods. This information is on our school district website. And I just encourage, parents and community and board to continue to follow these efforts around universal face covering, and also the information that can be found on our website regarding the dashboard and the case counts.
So one of the things that we did want to reference this evening, just as we look to make the transition to 4-day in-person instruction, and as we shared in our communication when we issued the winter survey, is when the district does return to 4-day-a-week instruction, we still will be following the guidelines for cases in our schools. And we've been experiencing some of the effects of these guidelines, being the recommended closing based on the case counts over a 14-day period of time. So we did want to, reference the table again that breaks down each of our schools in the district. Our large building, we have one, which is our high school, followed by our mediums at the middle school, elementary, and then our small school buildings, which is the 4 primary schools. And you can see in there when the county is in the substantial level of community transmission, as we are. These are the guidelines that we will be working under, whether we are in a hybrid learning model or when we are in a full 4-day per week instructional model. Throughout the process leading up to and within the window, the school district continues to consult with the Allegheny County Department of Health. And as we've had to do recently, we will issue an initial closure and transition to virtual. And if the conditions continue to warrant that, we will consult with the Allegheny County Health Department. There are several parameters that we use in order to make those necessary decisions. But as we look to add more kids in the building and the possibility exists for additional case counts in those buildings, we do want to make families aware that the potential for sporadic school closures could increase as we add more students into the building. So we did want everybody to be aware of that. As Dr. Aiken referenced, we continue to use the dashboard. It is updated regularly to track positive cases. One of the clarifications on the dashboard, there's a couple of scenarios. The dashboard includes cases where the child was in school during their infectious period, and they are a cohort A or B student. The dashboard does not include students who are in cohort C, and it does not include students who we received notification of their positive status when they were not in school during the infectious period of time. So that's important to note if you're reviewing the dashboard. We do inform parents When there is a positive case, it does not matter if they're in school during the infectious period, but it does not count in the 14-day rolling closure. Additionally, we do not report students who are in Cohort C and who are not in our schools throughout the day.
So the final slide tonight that we'd like to share with the school board is just the transition timeline. Again, this is the administration recommendation, and we are encouraging the board to approve a transition to 4-day in-person instruction for students, a phased-in approach that will begin on March 8th, 2021. So you'll see the timeline there is the first piece is really around the parent commitment form that will go out on Friday, February 19th. In this commitment form, the parent will select if their child is going to be part of the 4-day or part of the Cohort C virtual learner group. Then the week of February 19th through 24th and March 1st through 5th, we'll conduct parent and staff town hall meetings, both in K3 and then 4 to 6. And then Friday, February 26th, the parent commitment forms will be due for K to 3. And then Friday, March 5th, the parent commitment form will be due for grades 4 through 6. March 8th, 2021, we are recommending that students in grades K through 3 come back to school in 4-day instruction. And then on March 15th, we are recommending 4-day instruction to begin for students in grades 4 through 6. Now, in grades 7 through 12, we are looking into the month potentially in April for 4-day instruction for students in grades 7 through 12. And that will be pending Allegheny County district positivity rates. One of the notes that we put down there at the bottom is these dates are subject to change based upon the positive rates, case counts in Allegheny County and the Shaler Area School District. This is our recommendation to the school board. So before we get to public comment, I just ask the board, does the board have any questions related to the presentation or the recommendations made by the administrative team? Yes.
So transportation, especially with the littles, are we going to do assigned seating and attempt to maintain the students within their pods from the building?
They have used assigned seating, and I think they try to load the bus, front to back or back to front, and so that there's as little as crossover as possible. And that's something that our principals will be working with our school bus drivers and ABC with, especially as we transition, recognizing that close to 55% of our families stated that they would need transportation. So there's going to be a significant number of more students on the school buses.
And supplies. I know that early on, late last summer, there were some difficulties in supplies and everything that we needed to make sure that our buildings were safe. Do we have an adequate amount? Masks, sanitizer, soap, all to move into these phases?
We have all of the cleaning supplies that are necessary, and also our K to 6 principals have been working together for areas like the cafeteria to get additional desks and tables so that we can adequately space out and really adhere to the 6 feet of social distancing that's required. And they're also looking at alternative spaces as well. So they may be looking at places like the library or classrooms or the cafeteria, and just looking at ways to do things a little bit differently to make sure that our students are spaced out appropriately.
And my final question. This instructional model was designed for ease of transition in and out of in-building or remote to make it easier for the students families, depending on different factors. I'm concerned that having this many more students in the building, and I'm not saying it has to be a 9-week commitment like we did early on, but even a week's notice, and identifying a contact person at the building who would then know, I need to call this department, if we need to add a desk to a room, just so that our buildings are ready for, somebody that maybe is leaving Cohort C and coming back into the buildings, or even leaving the in-class cohort to go into Cohort C.
Yeah. The flexibility has been nice, but I think it's also been a significant challenge for our teachers. And so when students, they could have symptoms, or it could be, a safety precaution that a parent takes. But we recognize that there is a lot of fluidity in this
Could be a normal
process.
sick day. I mean,
Yeah, so we have to look at, maybe what's working in our district, and then also what's working in some other districts, and try to identify ways to create a little bit more stability where we can.
just so our building leaders have a little bit of advanced knowledge of ins and outs, and, again, because we have this many children in, and we're concerned about room sizes, logistics could play a role.
Dr. Aiken?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Dr. Aiken?
Yes.
Oh, 2 questions. What is the objective of the town hall meeting? And maybe some clarification on why March 8th is the opening date for K through 3 as opposed to March 1st?
Sure. So the first piece, the town hall question, the town hall with the staff and also the parents is just an opportunity to engage in some discussion and dialogue. As we transition, we want to get as much feedback as possible. We found these meetings in the past to be beneficial, to hear what some of the questions are, to communicate. A lot of the presentation, we have a lot of people on this call tonight, but obviously not everyone in the district has access to this tonight or is able to join us. So this is another opportunity for parents to engage with us, for us to share information, and to answer any questions that people may have. Likewise for staff, it's just an opportunity just to, these transitions are big, and we recognize that there's concern, and we want to address concerns that are out there, help mitigate and make this as smooth as transition as possible, recognizing that everybody kind of is in a different place around COVID, and recognizing that there's fear and anxiety and concerns, and so it's just an opportunity for us to address any questions that may be out there, and try to troubleshoot through, work through any problems that may exist. The second piece, really, it came down to time. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, we had a pretty large furniture order that was delivered today, and it's going to take some time to prepare. We also have the opportunity for our staff that have a professional development clerical day, March 5th. So that'll be a great opportunity for them to be in their classrooms, K-3, to prepare for the transitions, moving desks around, file cabinets, whatever they need to do to create that additional space in the classroom to prepare for the students for March 8th. So that really, it just provided us a little bit more time to get all the resources that we need and make this transition as smooth as possible for our families and our staff.
Thank you.
Dr. Aiken, early on, didn't ABC create a cleaning video just so parents could, do you think, and I think that will relieve a lot of people's concerns. It's quite impressive what they committed to our district. Maybe if we could repost that so people know what would be going on the buses.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we actually had one in, I think it was in Scott Primary too, Dr. O'Black.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Dr. Black, I have a question, simply because I think you may know the answer. The first couple slides dealt with the number that we had to reach a closure based on the size of the building, based on a substantial rating. Now, if that rating were to change, if the numbers continue on the trend that they are now, and it changes to a moderate rating, obviously that would change too. Is there a dramatic change to that, or is it just a few
It's not a dramatic change, but as we go down into the lower segments of the designation model, it becomes it just becomes more in line with the level of transmission in the community. Obviously, when you're in a substantial level of transmission, there's significant community spread. When you go into a moderate category, that spread is not as community-wide, and it becomes more isolated cases. And really, when the health department is looking at these cases, they are looking for interconnected cases. They are looking for spread within the schools and among students, or among staff. The singleton cases are not as significant to them because oftentimes those are family related. They are a dad, got it at work, and the family is not able to isolate. So obviously what happens is, wife, spouse, child, anybody living within the household then becomes positive. So it's important that when you're in a substantial level, they are looking at widespread community transmission, and they have the most restrictive measures within schools and school numbers. But as we move down into those county or those state designations, then those closure designations modify slightly.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions from the board?
I do. I know that things change constantly with the recommendations, but what is the current Department of Education recommendation when we're in a substantial level for in school models?
Yeah, I think it really depends. If you are willing to sign the attestation agreement, the recommendation is to have students in school. But I also recognize that, there are students across the state and school districts across the state that are not in school in the substantial category. So I think the attestation agreement provides the opportunity for districts like ours to consider hybrid and also increase to 4-day, 5-day, whichever model that we choose. In Allegheny County, looking at the data, we're looking at probably close to 25 to 30 of the 42 districts in Allegheny County will be in some type of 4 or 5-day instructional model as of March 1st. So we're kind of in that range there. So I hope that answered your question, Jason.
Okay. I didn't know if there was a recommendation from the state that, said if we're in substantial, should we be in hybrid? Should we be remote? Should we be, I didn't know if I know they give you the option.
Yeah.
If you sign the
I think the recommendation, the initial recommendation is still for substantial is remote instruction. But then I think there's the attestation agreement that provides the alternative options.
Dr. Aiken, we have a lot of company today. Would you just briefly explain the attestation agreement for people that might have not been on one?
You could even go back to that slide, Dr. O'Black. Yeah,
Just
so
people understand. I'm sorry. Thank
yeah,
you.
it really was an opportunity for districts just to commit to mitigation efforts. And you can see in the slide, Dr. Kulkowski, really around the Department of Health's universal face covering order. That was what was changed at that time. And what districts were stating is that they were going to commit to following that order. And then it provided the opportunity to state what instructional model that we would choose. And that, as you may recall, back in, I think it was late November or early December, we signed the attestation agreement committing at that time to be in remote instruction and then amended accordingly when we transitioned to hybrid.
Dr. Aiken, along that same line, in light of what we were told at last week's meeting by our high school student representatives at the meeting. Has anything else new been put into place to ensure that not only the students, but our staff is abiding by this universal face covering order and wearing their masks properly and at all the times? Is there anything in place to ensure that that's actually being done?
Well, I think the most important thing we did is we followed up with all of our principals. And as we suggested last week, it's just a good reminder for all of us, students and staff alike, that we have to stop the spread of the virus. One of the best way that has been identified is the masking order. And so we did have an opportunity to speak with our principals after last week's meeting to reiterate the need to make sure that this is necessary. Have we put new procedures in place for students that violate this or staff that violate this? No. But according to our principals, they feel like this is something that's within our control and under control at this time. Obviously, we learned something that surprised all of us last week. And I think it's just necessary that we continue to reinforce these messages to make sure. Overall, I think it's a learning experience for all of us. All of us at times feel uncomfortable with the mask. People don't understand what we're saying, or we need a break, get hot. So I think it's a process of just learning and growing together. And I think it should be educational and not just punitive.
Dr. Aiken,
Yes, sir, Mr. Gapsky.
have you reached out? Would it be possible for you to reach out to the student representatives to make sure that they're happier with the
Yeah, I think doing a follow-up with Katie would be really important. Katie's been part of our student advisory group for probably about 4 years now. She's always been very honest with us and open about, what goes on in schools all the way back to middle school. She was part of our group. And yeah, we definitely look forward to the opportunity checking back with her to see if everything is kind of moving in the right direction, I would say.
Thank you.
One final question, Dr. Aiken. Well, probably not, but I'll try. So 3 weeks seems like a long time, but at the same time, the last time I looked at the calendar, it was March of 2020, right? Yeah. So time is flying by. Will we have adequate time, even with the additional part-time custodians, to get the rooms set up appropriately? And do we think, I know this sounds menial, but to get tape spots on the floor so that kids don't get there and shift over to where their neighbor is, or I don't know if we've gotten dug down that deep into details yet, but
I think the added week going from March 1st to March 8th really helped. I think if we would have stuck potentially with that March 1st date, like we had initially kind of thought about, I think it would have been very challenging. But I think just having that a little bit of buffer time will allow us that time to make sure that we kind of double check on some things. In fact, we were in a meeting today with our K-6 principals, and I know the 4 to 6 principals were jumping off the call to actually go around and do some of this work and really but continue to look at these areas to see where we continue to make improvements so that our students and staff are safe.
I know we've said this a bunch of times, but please share our thanks to not only the nurses, but the training staff at the high school who have gone above and beyond throughout this entire process to make sure that everyone was safe.
All right. At this time, we were going to transition to public comment. And I know Mr. Tunstall had, if you want to maybe review public comment protocol, Mr. Tunstall?
We do. And I think if we can, we'll start if there's anybody here first, and then we'll move into anybody with us online. But I think it's important to remember that if we do have any public comment, we welcome everyone's comment, but we do request that you limit your comments to 3 minutes, just out of respect for everyone we have. We do have a lot of people with us tonight. So if we do have a number of people that want to speak, out of respect for them, we'd like to limit their comments to 3 minutes. So with that said, is there anyone here with us tonight that wants to speak on this particular?
Hello.
Just please, just state your name and your address for the secretary, and go ahead.
My name is Kelly Yetzi, Yezzi, 121 East Undercliff Street, Pittsburgh 15223. My concern is very basic. We have been in virtual, schools closed as of March 16th last year. I have a senior. You're trying to tell us that all the younger grades are going to be going back sooner rather than later, but you're looking at 7th through 12th grade of April. That gives seniors, and I know there's a lot of other grades, seniors, let me say that again, seniors, roughly 35 days left of their senior year. Put it into numbers. My son's cohort A has only been in school 16 days this year. So now you're taking us well past a whole year. I get that there's a lot of different things going on. It's a pandemic. There's a lot of moving pieces. Seniors, kindergarten, 1st through 3rd, up to 6th grade, everybody, they get more time. This is it. I've spoken to Dr. Aiken and also Dr. Black regarding my concerns. I want to see standards. There should be no difference as far as virtual, cohort A, cohort B, cohort C. Everybody has a schedule. Everybody should be teaching their entire period. It shouldn't matter if you are sitting in this building, sitting at home, where you're working, where you're learning. Our teachers are doing a great job, but seriously, they should be getting the same exact seamless education as if they're sitting at Shaler Area High School or sitting in their bedroom. What are the standards? If a period's 40 minutes, how long are they supposed to be online? 40 minutes. If they were in a classroom, they would be with their teacher for 40 minutes. Why do they get instruction for 10 minutes in some classes and the Google Meet's over and they are given work to do? I'm sorry, I have to work 8 hours in a day to get paid. Everybody should be working. Everybody has a schedule. But once again, seniors, is there a reason why with all of this, seniors, with 43% of them at this point choosing to be all in cohort C, out of 283 seniors, seniors cannot choose to be in school 4 days a week? My other comment is that, and I talked to Dr. Black at the beginning of the year, very concerned with regards to how the class of 2020's ending happened. Granted, it was a new whole event, but we are now, what, almost a year into this, and it's no better. We need to do something better. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yersin.
I'm Keely Siding, 330 West Road. And I just want to thank you guys for sending out a survey. I know I missed it. I wish you would get more of our feedback more frequently, because I think most people would have wanted our kids in this 4-day program months ago. I think April is way too long, and I know March for the little kids, but second Kelly, I have a sophomore. This is his sophomore year. He's never going to get this back. They've lost a year of their high school. April, that gives them what? I didn't do the calculation, a couple months of school. This is sad. It's sad that we can't pull this together to get our kids into school safely. And I'm wanting to know why on your survey was it left off to not give us an option of 5 days? Why can our kids not be in school 5 days? Thank you.
This is Flo Grada. Can you hear me?
Sir, everybody else? Anybody?
Yes.
Okay, sure.
That seems to be my question, is what is the difference between 4 days and 5 days? You're doing the same cleaning procedures, so why can't the kids, no matter what grade they're in, my child is in primary school, he is in 2nd grade, he has always done very well, and he has failed his first math test because they are getting new concepts. They're not getting, I listen to some of these classes with his teacher, and she spends more time saying, okay, Jimmy, you need to turn your camera back on. Okay, let's sit up straight here, Susie. And there is so much more nonsense than I watch my own child sit here and be a jumping bean because he's not in an environment that is school. And why only the half a day virtual on Wednesdays? Like, what is Wednesday just a free day? This whole thing, I'm a nurse. We had to figure it out. Grocery stores had to figure it out. Garbage men had to figure it out. Why didn't the schools have to figure it out? Because it's hurting our children. I don't know how many parents agree with me. Apparently, all but 33% of them that aren't comfortable. But my husband and I both had COVID over the holidays. It was from somebody that came to the house. This child did not get COVID. I had him tested after we were done with our infection, and then 2 weeks past that, then I had him tested. He was negative. So just because you have somebody that's COVID positive in your household does not mean that they are going to get it. And you have to remember that the chance of you getting seriously ill if you're a young, healthy individual is very, very minimal. So why not 5 days a week?
Let me address that 4 versus 5 days. Well, we started out the school year in remote instruction. And then in October, we transitioned to hybrid. And then we transitioned back to remote instruction right around Thanksgiving time, and then transitioned back in January to hybrid. We feel strongly that this is the next progression. Jumping in and going right to 5 days, once again, we've been in remote, we've been in hybrid. We think 4 days is the next best step in the progression of moving our students into full-time. Just a couple reasons why. Wednesdays is not a free day, certainly not. There's a lot of instruction, there's a lot of meetings, there's just a lot of planning, there's connections with the Cohort C group. If we're going to have over 30% or around 30% of our students in Cohort C, that's a considerable amount of time that our teachers need to plan for that Cohort C group. We as a school district elected a model that allowed for fluid transition between a student that may need to go into isolation, a student that may need to go into quarantine. But what they did is we didn't send those students out to a cyber school. We kept them within our district, and students that opted for Cohort C stayed within our district and stayed within our teachers, because we recognize that relationship between the teacher and student is extremely important, especially if a family maybe felt more comfortable in the month of November transitioning in. So Wednesday has a lot of different meanings. We do think this is a natural step in the next progression, getting our kids back into school full time. We also think that we want to have success at each step along the way before we make these decisions to move into 4 day and 5 day. There's deep cleaning that takes place in the school buildings on Wednesdays. There's the care for the students that are in Cohort C and those connections that take place between the teacher and the student. There's a lot of planning and different things that go on, recognizing that this is essentially a first year teaching for many of our teachers to teach this model of instruction. So there's a lot of planning, professional development, and teachers working with each other and doing a lot of instructional planning during that time. So Wednesday is not a free day. It is a work day, but I would say that this is the natural next step in the progression of us moving towards that 5 day. And that's why we're proposing the 4 day to the board tonight.
Mr. Tunstall?
1 minute, please.
Okay.
I don't want to, I mean, we're rolling out a plan tonight for the 4-day, Keely. So I want to focus on that. And I hope that we can get to a 5-day, but I recognize that. But I really feel like, you know, I understand that you personally as a parent and 70% of our parents feel strongly that, you know, 5 days is perfectly fine or 4 days is perfectly fine. But we've got to balance all these different factors involved as a school district.
That really want their kids in school.
And we recognize that. And I don't think anybody here is denying that. I think what we're looking at is the natural progression. We recognize that.
March, that's a whole year.
I mean, I think that we're in a pandemic and we're recognizing that there are a lot of changes that have occurred over the past 11 months. And we are stepping through this one step at a time to be safe, cautious, and intentional about how we walk through this so that we can make sure that we take care of our students, take care of our staff, just recognizing that this is a decision that we need to make for 4,000 students and 350 teachers and 500 staff members, cafeteria workers and bus drivers. All those different pieces combined go into the decision-making process.
I think it's important to remember too, like we have a school, we have the high school tonight, we have a school that's closed, right? Because of a case count. We have 19 cases in that school. Do we just put them all back and just see how it goes? We've gotta figure it out. We gotta do it the right way. So it's not, it's hard to just say, well, let's throw them back and see what happens. I mean, we have the school closed, there's 19 cases in there. What do we do to fix that?
What's the transmission rate of students getting, or staff getting sick in school? What's the transmission rate of?
Well, the good news with that is up to this point, it's been relatively low.
Okay.
Right. However,
In a very controlled environment.
however,
That's fine, I'm not saying.
Keely, that could change. That could change. And we actually just got off the phone earlier with one of the doctors who's an epidemiologist from the Allegheny County Health Department, and they are starting to see transmissions that are occurring in school. I know leading up to this, there was very little data that suggested, especially at this K-3, K-5 level with elementaries. So we recognize that, but I think it's important to note that when we make decisions, we've got to take the whole picture into consideration. As Mr. Tunstall stated right now, I mean, there's nothing that any of us would love more than to flip a switch and see it return back to normal and have that sense of normalcy. But the reality is the pandemic is real. There are real concerns. We have to take the safety of our students and the safety of our staff into consideration when we make these decisions. And we want to step through it in a way that makes sense. We constantly are looking for steps that we can take. I know it may not be quick in some people's minds that you know, this is 11 months, but the reality is you know, we're all walking through this for the first time. And, you know, our goal is to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our students, not only the academic needs, but also the social and emotional needs.
I understand that, but I feel like we as parents in the community have been failed by the school district because, as I said before, everybody else had to figure it out. We do screenings, we do masking. If we have an outbreak in one of my facilities, we can't close the facility because we still have to deal with those patients. We still have patients to care for. So those patients are sent to a cohort facility during the time that they are infectious.
You can't do that with kids.
They are taken out of that facility. We don't close the whole facility. We didn't have time to figure this out. We had to do it immediately on the fly because we were dealing with high risk, sick, already high comorbid individuals. The school had 3 months 4 months from March when you closed to figure out how to get these kids back in school 5 days a week safely, and you failed us.
We understand.
I don't
We're gonna
agree
keep-
with that because there were a lot of meetings that went on over those summer months.
if you're gonna have
And there was a
talk,
very
yeah,
cohesive plan that was designed to allow the kids to come in remote, then transition to hybrid, then transition to the 4 days based on CDC guidelines and health department guidelines. The district has been following those relatively closely to make sure that everyone is safe. The district did not fail. District worked very hard. Our teachers, our leaders, and our buildings worked very hard to design that plan, and that's the plan we've been following since last summer.
I think I heard Ms. Laymeyer comment.
Yes, I did. Thank you, Mr. Tunstall. Crystal Lamar, 302 Hillwood Road, 15209. Many know I'm pretty vocal. And I think what I want to say is people don't understand too is that this is just a proposal. So I think what a lot of us parents have to do is let the board members know why we need our children back in school 4 days a week. I understand that a lot of people are upset right now that it's only 4, but we haven't even got a guarantee of the 4 yet. You know, what Dr. Aiken and Dr. Black are proposing is just a proposal until the board votes on it. So I think one of my main concerns right now is letting the board know why it is important. And I understand Kelly and the other parents' frustration, especially with the seniors. I have a bunch of friends that have seniors this year. And I have a girlfriend that started the Adopt a Senior, so we can get them presents and things like that to give them some kind of normalcy. You know, but I have 2 little kids in primary school and one that has an IEP. And the sad thing to say is my son that has an IEP is doing better than my daughter who doesn't, because my son is going to school 4 days a week. You know, he is able to attend reserve 4 days a week because he has a special needs. And I've seen a daughter go from A's to D's in a matter of 10 months. 10 months. You know, I stated this, you know, our last month's meeting, you know, to have a child drop, you know, 20 words per minute in reading, you know, and to have, you know, and then as I said, I'm a social worker, I'm not a teacher, but I don't know how to even fulfill their needs. I don't teach the way you guys teach. I don't know the way there's even showing how to do multiplication, you know, problem solving. That's not even how we were taught, you know, 30 years ago. So apparently I'm teaching them wrong. So I think that's the other necessity that you guys have to understand. We don't know what they're learning. They have to be in school. So I have a son that has a learning disability that is getting better grades than my child that doesn't. And that's all because he goes 4 days a week and she doesn't. And that's what I think the parents that are on here now need to explain to you, because what you parents aren't understanding, they're voting on this tonight. These 4 days still aren't guaranteed to us, guys. They're still not guaranteed. This is a proposal. So, sorry, Jim.
Thank you. If there's anyone else from the public that's online, please unmute yourself, state your name, your address.
It's Sarah Nelson. I have a question. So Butler is going 4 days a week, but they're going Monday through Thursday, and they use Friday as a deep clean. Did you consider that as one of the possibilities going 4 days at all? That way you get 3 solid days without anybody in a building to be able to clean it and have it get aired out and stuff.
We have not considered making that switch, Ms. Nelson. But what I would say is, you know, families up to this point that we know of, in some cases, have already secured, you know, childcare for Wednesdays, and they have, you know, looked for options, you know, that they needed. So the reason why we would be hesitant to flip that right now is really around the possibility of how that would impact our families. That's just my initial thought. It's something that we could look into and find out, what's the best way. One of the things that we looked at too with that, Sarah, is just the number of moving parts over the past year has been very difficult for our families, for our staff, for everyone, and our students. And so anytime that we make any decision to change something, we recognize that it has an impact on our families, our community, and also our staff. So we'd have to look into the consideration of how that would impact our people before we make that shift. I do know there are a couple districts in Allegheny County that use Friday, but it seems like the vast majority of them right now are using Wednesdays. Just a thought.
Hi, this is Diane Seifert, 815 Redstone Drive, Allison Park, 15141. I have a question. One of my sons graduated in 2020. I also have a sophomore at the high school currently. I see the same things happening with my sophomore that happened with my child who graduated in 2020. There is no accountability at the high school. The teachers teach whenever they want. Wednesday is a free day. Today, my child had 2 classes out of an entire day. 2. On the snow day where it was flipped to virtual, the teachers most of them didn't teach because it was an optional day to teach. My child woke up at 7 o'clock to sign in at 7:19, and yet it was considered an optional day for the teachers who didn't bother to turn on their Google Classroom. We just had a parent say that Butler was going 4 days. I know Hampton goes 4 days. Mars has gone 4 days. Has anybody considered reaching out to these districts to figure out what they're doing that we're not doing, that their students are in the classroom 4 days and ours are not? Maybe? It's just a suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your concerns. And some of those places that you've identified are they're going 4 or 5 days are not going 4 or 5 days at the secondary level. And yes, we do work closely with other school districts quite often. And also thank you for sharing your concerns about the high school. Be sure to share these with Dr. Royal.
I have shared those with Dr. Royal on numerous occasions. And Dr. Royal has told me he'll talk to the teacher and talks to the teacher and the teacher tells him that they're teaching all the time. They're not teaching. Is there any accountability for someone to be checking on the teachers as to whether or not they're actually teaching?
As I said, thank you, Ms. C, for sharing this information.
You're welcome.
Hi, Michelle Craig, 120 Gerard Drive, 15209. Thank you all, for putting together this proposal. Aside from doing the 4 days a week, which I am hopeful that this is going to occur not just for educational purposes, but really for the emotional purposes. I have a daughter that just started kindergarten this year. Thankfully, she's doing very well in it, probably because I'm sitting behind her, multitasking with my own job. I feel like I'm always yelling at her to sit down and, do her work. I mean, I think when we're going through this voting process tonight, can we really, again, not just educational purposes, but think about what's going through with these kids right now. I'm trying to work from home. I've always worked from home, even before the pandemic. But the added stress that are on us parents that we're now putting on our kids, sit down, do your work, don't talk. Are you paying attention? Do this worksheet. Wait, can you be quiet because mommy has a call now? Go downstairs, do this, do your worksheet. Okay, it's your break time, but I can't do anything. Go watch your iPad on YouTube because now mommy needs to do her work. I mean, this is just something that is really going to take a toll on these kids for the rest of their lives, I feel like. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Craig.
Hi, this is Melissa Ravis from 498 CV Road, Pittsburgh, 15209. So I have a student in 8th grade and I have a student in 11th grade, and they are currently participating in virtual instruction. They had been hybrid before. And I really, up until, January here, I thought that the way the district was handling everything, I was in agreement with, I could get behind, because we were using the information that was out there from the experts to make our decisions. In November, Mr. Aiken, you told us that we would go to moderate, or we would go to virtual until we spent 2 weeks in the moderate. And then come January, we just disregarded that and went back to virtual and said we would follow these case count situations, which has happened to varying degrees. And at this point, we have 3 schools that have been closed, 2 more that have met the threshold for closure out of the districts, or, out of the buildings in our district. And now we're talking about increasing it. And I really feel like for us parents who are trying to follow the guidelines with our kids and trying to stress the importance of all the things that the CDC says, which is you can return to school if masks are worn, social distancing is applied, updated ventilation in buildings, and reduce the density of the populations in school. And here we are talking about doing the exact opposite of 2 of those things. We're going to decrease social distancing and we are going to increase the population in our schools. And I don't know how we can say that that is a good decision to make for our kids in their physical health and their emotional health, where they're worried about bringing home COVID to someone in their home who may be high risk. I'm a high risk household, and my kids are very conscientious about it. And they're very concerned about going back to school where they may have 28 kids sitting in a room with them, where 6-foot social distancing won't even be close to possible. So what I ask is that you don't forget about the other parents who really would like to see all of the safety measures continue when you're making this decision. Although some might not care about them, there are many parents out there who do still care about the social distancing and decreasing the population and all of those things in our schools, so that our kids can be safe and they cannot have that additional worry of what they're bringing home to their families.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes.
May I speak for a second?
Sure.
I would like to say something too.
Yep.
Oh,
Okay. Can I?
whoever that is,
My name.
your address.
Okay. My name's Maria Eshelman, and I live at 415 Topaz Drive. And I just wanted to, I have a daughter in high school who is a senior, and I just wanted to respond to the woman or the few people that said that their child or their student was not being educated during the Cohort C. Now, I will say my daughter takes college in high school classes, and she also takes AP courses. And I'm here most of the day, and she, we communicate all day long, and she is getting educated by her teachers in real time almost every single day. So I'm not making a comment regarding anybody else's experience, but I do want to say that she is learning and she is being educated, and they're not just shoving her off, or she's not just having classes by herself. She would not be able to do those classes unless somebody was actually teaching her. So that is occurring. I just want to make that clear. And then I just have one question. And my question is, I think, is the Public Health Department coming in to see why we're actually having that spike at the high school? Because I'm sure they're going to do some contact tracing, because we have had a pretty big spike there. So that's the one question. And the other one is that I would like, as a nurse also, to let people know that it's very, very important that we as a community do what we're supposed to do outside of school. And that means that your children may not get a birthday party with 1 million people. They may not have a New Year's Eve party like some people have had in the past. Those types of things have to stop so that we can go to school safely. So we have to be good stewards in our community. So I think that it's a two-way street. It's not just the school district's responsibility, but it's parents' responsibilities to realize that their children will have these activities going forward in their life when we get past this. But in order to stay in school and stay healthy, we do have to be good stewards in the community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I would like to say something. My name is Katie Grzbowski. It's 828 Weibel Run Road, Pittsburgh, PA, 15209. I just want to say that I think the teachers in the district and everybody has been handling everything great. The custodians who work their butts off to clean these schools on that Wednesday, where these parents that are saying they think is a free day, it is not. Can I repeat? It is not a free day. Number two, I have a child that is an IEP and she is doing absolutely wonderful at home. And I have to agree with the last lady that said, if you want your children back 4 days a week as a community, that means you got to keep your butts home. At the same time, you got to sacrifice things as well, because these traces are only going to go up. The schools are going to get shut down again if we all don't start all doing our part at the same time. The district has not failed us. If anything, I think that they have been great at making sure our students are safe, our staff is safe. I think the teachers have been working their butts off with dealing with everything that they have to deal with. So if your child is having problems at home as well in school, I think it's time to step up and maybe work with your child a little bit more. I don't know. I'm just sorry, but some of these parents are frustrating me more than anything. But I think you guys are doing a wonderful job. And I think the teachers are doing great. And I think the custodians who are one-on-one with this, who are the ones cleaning up after every single student and staff member in contact with this, are all doing wonderful, on their supposed free day. That's all I would like to say.
I would like to speak.
Go ahead.
Okay, this is Natalie Jesuit, 1208 Zeno Lane, Allison Park, 15101. I would just like to say a few things just because, everybody else is talking. I do want the kids back at 4 days a week. I do realize there's safety issues, but I think it is better for the kids to be in school. The kids that cannot maybe are around partiers or whatever it is, maybe they should stay home. That's fine. My kid is also a senior. I will say, my daughter says that she does learn. The teachers that don't teach weren't going to teach if she was in the class anyway. It's the same teachers that teach are teaching at home. The ones that don't teach in school are the same ones. That hasn't changed. So my other thing is I think we need to teach these kids, we're talking about mental health and you talk about all these things with these kids being home. We need to teach our kids not to feel sorry for themselves. We can't be raising snowflakes. We have to teach our kids life is not always fair. Okay, it's your senior year. It's my daughter's senior year too. She's in student government. They're working hard to try and plan things, and parents are constantly shooting them down. But life isn't fair, and sometimes you don't get everything you want in your life, and that's okay. We need to teach these kids there's going to be other things in life. This is not the peak of your life. You got a whole life out there to live. And I just think that, instead of beating these kids down and telling the parents are sitting there in their ears telling them, you're missing out, you're not getting all your stuff. Listen, we're in a pandemic. I don't like it. I'm not a fan of a lot of this stuff. But unfortunately, this is where we are. But we need to be role models for our children. And we need to just guide them in the right way instead of being so negative. That's all I have to say.
Couldn't agree more.
Anybody else in the virtual call, please hold on for 1 second. We have one person in the audience.
Hi, I'm Megan Schwab. Do I say my street address? 13 Lindmark Road, Pittsburgh, PA 15229. This is not the reason that I came here today was to talk about this, but I keep hearing my child and my senior. I am a senior. I'm sure you guys, I don't know how many actual students you guys get coming in here, but I do feel that it's important to show you guys that as a senior and as someone who sits in that class in honors and AP classes, that some of my teachers, I'm not saying all of them, some of them do not teach on Wednesdays. I know some parents, it all depends on your teacher. That's what I like to say. Some teachers also take Wednesdays as to watch their kids. I see kids on their screen all the time. It's not their fault. It's nothing that any of us can control, but that is happening. And as an honors AP and a senior, all wrapped in one, Some of my teachers are not teaching on Wednesdays. I wake up at 7:18, log on. My math teacher in the morning says, let's take attendance. Everyone says here, all right, guys, have a nice day. That's what I get on Mondays sometimes. I'm not saying all the time. I'm not saying that this happens constantly, but on Wednesdays, I know some of the parents are saying that they do hear instructions and they are getting taught. I'm a senior and I have had some of my worst grades this year. And I know it's all your house environment, your the way you learn, like a lot of things factor into how you're doing this year. But me personally, as a senior, on Wednesdays is more of a break day, if you want to call it. And I am one of those people who will log on, take attendance, and do nothing, like if I'm going to be honest. And that's coming from a student and a senior. And I just think we should try maybe do something for Wednesdays, especially for some of those classes, in AP and honors classes that I'm in. Sorry.
No, thank you for that.
Can you join us anytime?
Yeah, always. Thank you.
I'm new with this, so.
You did great.
Is there anyone else virtually that would like to speak?
No,
Um,
please vote.
Yes, I'd like to speak. I've
Sure.
had my hand raised.
Okay, go ahead. Sure.
Hi, hello, my name is Erin Hollenbaugh. I live at 1445 Balsam Drive. I am a middle school learning support teacher within the Franklin Regional School District. Our school district houses about 3,400 students with a staff of 450 individuals. So I just want to give you a kind of heads up of, what our district is like. A little bit smaller than Shaler area, but pretty much the same. We are in Westmoreland County. Excuse me? Okay. We're in Westmoreland County and we have been 5 days in person, K-8 since September 8th. We have had no transmissions within any of our buildings. However, we have had 2 buildings needed to close for 3 days based on the numbers that was set out by Westmoreland County and the CDC. The 2 times that large groups of students had to be quarantined within my building, grades 6, 7, and 8, they were sports teams. The boys basketball team had to be quarantined and the hockey team had to be quarantined. And you could probably guess why. They were playing unmasked. They were on buses unmasked. So luckily, we didn't have transmission within our buildings. At Shaler area, you have to ask yourself, have you had any transmission within your buildings, within the classrooms while the kids have been in hybrid? The answer is no. Is there community transmission? Yes. There have been 2 people so far that have spoke about the safety outside of school. You have to stay home. Those of you playing sports and participating in things, you really have to think about if your child is unmasked and they're participating in that sport, how safe is that? You're now bringing that to the classrooms and you're then affecting those students that can't participate in sports because their sport's not happening. Think about that. I am a middle school learning support teacher. I have not tested positive for COVID. I've never been exposed. My students are 6 feet apart all of the time. These kids need to be in the building 4 days a week and as soon as possible. The community, we need to stay away from one another. We have to be safe. We have to trust those that are in our circle. But if you look up what Franklin Regional School District has done, yes, we have had large groups that have had to quarantine, but our buildings never have. And I would be willing to help Shaler area get into a plan of getting our students back in the classroom 4 days a week. Unfortunately, our high school is not 4 days a week. And I'm sorry to all the senior parents that are out there. It's just not working with the singleton classes. It's just not safe. But the younger kids, get them into school. It's so important. The research shows that they need to be in person with their teachers. Thank you.
Thank you.
I totally agree. And one thing that I would add is, what is more important, getting our kids in the classroom and getting them educated, or sports? Thank you.
Thanks. Do we have any others? Okay, if we have no one else, we'll move on.
I have a question, if I could.
Sure.
Pat Murray, 450 McElhaney Road. Mr. Aiken, you had mentioned that part of the reason, I believe, of choosing 4 days over 5 for the next step is because of kind of the, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but something about the reset day or planning day, I guess, for teachers that helps with the virtual students. Has there been any discussion of having, and maybe it's too late to do for this year, but this goes into, I guess, people's decisions as it goes to next year also, having a separate cyber academy or teachers dedicated only to the people who are choosing virtual, so that there is an option to get to 5 days a week for those who are going to be in without having the teachers have to worry about teaching 2 different groups, the people who are there and the people who aren't there. I guess part of the reason for that question is just wanting to know if there is any opportunity to get to 5 even next year, if it's going to be a situation where teachers need to have a planning day because they're teaching 2 different types of classes, shall we say.
Mr. Murray? Thank you for asking that question. And yes, we actually have been planning and thinking about ways to make that work. I would say for this year, that's probably not possible, but we don't want to break up that relationship between the teacher and the student during the school year. But I would say moving forward into the 2021-2022 school year, that is something that we're planning for. Some type of virtual academy, flexible instruction, some type of hybrid option where you may have different people teaching different classes, virtual teachers potentially. So it's something we're looking at and planning for in the years to come.
I have one quick question. This is Lisa Pierce, 211 Morewood Road, Glenshaw. In your presentation, you indicated that there would be a threshold, that there would be rates that you look at for the high school and secondary education to return in person. Are you willing to share what the threshold is so that a vote can be made based on that information as well, and not just an ambiguous indicator?
I think the most important thing right now is that we start to see these numbers come down where we're at right now. So I think that's the first step. The second step, and we talked about this, as an administrative team with the board, is just how important it is to see, possibly we're on the cusp as a county into moving into the moderate phase. We're very close right now, even though the numbers in Shaler area seem to be going up, the numbers in the county are going down. And so I think that's an important step too, that we want to see take place. All of us are in favor of seeing 4-day instruction at the 7 to 12 level. But I think the most important thing that we need to see right now is start to see some of these infection rates go down. So our initial timeline was sometime right after spring break, looking at like possibly April 12th, but I know we're going to continue to monitor this very closely. And then I think our goal is to make a recommendation to the school board in the month of March when we come back, and hopefully be moving in the right direction there. So yes, we do want to see that transition occur. We recognize how important that is. And those are some of the factors that we're going to be looking at. But the immediate is so important, is looking at transmission rates, not only in the school district, but also the community, because we feel like this has a community impact at this time.
And my follow-up question is regarding the building closures. When the buildings are closed, will they be closed to all staff and students? to prevent spread so we don't experience what is happening right at this moment at the high school.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Chris Luca, 201 Marianne Drive. I just had a quick question on clarification around the 14-day rolling time frame. I would think that that time frame should be linked back to when a student potentially was in school last, rather than when their positive test was registered. I was just curious to see if you could shed any light on that.
The district records the in the dashboard on the date in which the positive test result was received by the school district.
But I guess my question is, if that student tested positive a week after they potentially could have been in contact with other students, shouldn't the 14-day time period link back to that last potential contact date?
The school district has determined that we count that student on the day in which the positive test result was received by the school district and the school nurse.
That's, I'm struggling to understand the logic there. I'm sorry. It just, it extends the time unnecessarily.
Would that be based on the recommendation?
Yeah.
Or is that just?
We wouldn't know exactly when that transmission would have occurred.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other hard thing, because we want, would they be able to tell us, or would they tell you?
We
or
wouldn't,
would
we
they
wouldn't
even
know that.
Yeah, would they even know? So really, the only solid piece of evidence you have is that.
Is when the positive test result was received.
I understand.
We don't know when transmission occurs.
Right. They may not know.
And oftentimes they don't, the student or the employee doesn't even necessarily know the official date of the onset of symptoms, because they can be non-symptomatic. So the only official date that the district has to determine is the test result date.
Yeah.
Everything else would be speculation on behalf of the administration and the school nurse.
And with that being said, it'd almost be like you'd be potentially shutting down a school based on speculation. So by using this, it gives you at least a solid tool.
And it's a consistent matrix that we have to use.
Understood. Anyone else? Are we clear?
Yeah, hi. This is Matt Urban, 120 Horizon Drive. I just have a real quick question in terms of the different start dates from the primary schools to elementary schools. I know, Mr. Aiken, you'd indicated that you were on a call today with the elementary school principals, and they're already starting to work on getting the elementary school ready. Is there any reason why we have to wait another week as opposed to starting on the 8th along with the primary schools?
I think, Matt, the reason, one of the reasons, I wouldn't say it's the main reason, but the elementary school has had just recently, as of Friday evening, had to close down. And so we want to look at stabilizing that building. We had, I think it was 6 cases in that building. And so one of the ideas is that we want to, once again, going back to the progression of steps, we recognize that the youngest students, K-3, according to the data and the research, are the least impacted and affected by transmission. And so we're going to start there, and we want to have some success, build some success, and then grow into the 4, 5, 6. Initially, there was some discussion about starting at the same time, K-6, but some of the setbacks that we've had at the elementary school over the past week and a half or so have impacted that decision. Also, there's more moving parts as we go from K-3, 4, 5, 6 into middle school and high school. You have to recognize that there's a lot more movement in the schools, a little bit less control, and so that also plays into the factors in as well. And I would also want to clarify too that it wasn't accurate in saying that they were starting to prepare today. They were leaving the meeting to go and work on this, some of the aspects that we had talked about and some of the work that they're doing there too. So I just wanted to clarify that. This isn't something that just started this morning.
Clear? Okay, yes.
Just because, Dr. Aiken, I think it directly ties into these conversations. Can you mention the activity that Dr. Graysick has created and the time and the date for anyone that might not be aware?
Yeah.
Thank you.
March 3rd, yes. So 2 weeks from tonight, our district will be hosting a virtual event. Our school counselors, our Director of Pupil Services, Student Services, Dr. Kathy Graysick, are working together with our student assistance provider to promote and organize an event around helping students deal with stress. And so there's been a lot of discussion at the district level with the community as well around the needs, the social and emotional needs of our students. We worked with our student assistance provider to create this opportunity. There's going to be many presentations from each school in the district, starting with the primary schools, the elementary, middle school, and into the high school. That's just going to highlight some of the work that's being done for our parents and our students. And so we're looking forward to a great parent education event at 6 o'clock. There's information on our website on the main page about this. I think it was the first item or second item on the main page. But I think it's a tremendous opportunity for our students to engage with, our parents to engage with our school counselors and our SAP provider to learn a little bit more about dealing with stress during this pandemic. And I think it applies to so many of us and all the anxiety and mental health needs and social and emotional concerns that are out there. Thanks, Dr. Krukowski, for the reminder.
I need a motion and a second to approve the committee of the whole meeting.
Oh, I have a question.
Sure.
Stephanie Lang, 2331 Rose Drive. Two things. First, I just would love to give a shout out to Miss Hillary Demensik at high school. She's really gone over and above to help some of the kids in her classes, specifically the ones in Cohort C. So I really just want to take a second to acknowledge that. There are some incredible teachers in this district, and they should be acknowledged for that. My question is, I know that there were some comments earlier about athletics and activities, but I have a concern about the suspension of all athletics and activities during the high school time. A lot of the facilities that these activities and athletes use are not on campus. And if you look at the quarantine schedule from the PA Department of Health, it says quarantine can end after 10 days. Most of these kids that are involved are Cohort C, and they have not been in school for 10 days. My question is specifically for some of the athletes that have made it to postseason sports, such as the girls bowling team that has had their championship canceled for tomorrow, even though every single girl on that team that has qualified for that event has been out of the school for 10 days. So I understand that you're doing these blanket statements as a whole for all of athletics, but I really wish that not only would the district take team by team perspective and a look at things, because each team is different. I also think that you need to take a look at Cohort C, because these kids are not in school for lots of reasons. Mine isn't in school because she does want to be involved in some of these extracurricular things, and her grades are just fine. But there's a lot of girls on that team that are not in the school, that are not exposed, that are doing every single thing you're asking them to do, and they're getting punished now. This team they ranked 5th out of 45 teams in the WPIAL. Last year, that team made it to states for the first time ever in their history, and it was canceled on them. This year, minus three seniors that were there from last year, they still made it to the WPIAL championships, and they are poised to make it to the next round. They will be disqualified if they do not play tomorrow. So I'm just asking you very, very kindly to please reconsider what you're doing as a blanket statement for all of activities and all of athletics.
Ms. Lang, thank you for sharing and trust us when we say, you know, and many of us have children that play sports. And this decision was heart-wrenching for all of us involved. And I recognize that we have wrestlers that are going to miss out on opportunities. We have swimmers that are missing out on opportunities. We have a basketball team that's impacted by this decision. The reality is we've got to focus on the mitigation efforts and looking at, and I realize that there are students that are in Cohort C that are completely unaffected by this, but if we open up,
They still get penalized.
if we open up that door to,
Now that just makes your job a little bit more difficult. It's easy to blanket statement everybody, but it's harder to take an individual look. And I appreciate your response, but my daughter is not in school. She is not attending school. She is not even practicing on a campus facility. She is masked. The WIPIAL has put into place no spectators. The WIPIAL has separated boys and girls sports so that we have half of the people in a building at a time. We are doing everything that we can possibly do to keep things safe. So I understand where you're coming from. And yes, there are some sports that are high risk. Absolutely. My background is in sports medicine. All right. I understand where you're coming from. I'm just asking that we stop blanket statementing every single thing that we do, and we start looking at the individual. If you're really here for the kids, you're going to take a look at each sport, each activity, each class, each building, and make what makes the most sense for that group.
thank you, Ms. Lang.
Thank you.
Hi. Can I talk real quick as well?
Sure.
I'm Alexandra Pillick, 349 Coleman Drive, Pittsburgh, PA 15214. I'm also on the high school bowling team, and I find it very unfair that we can't compete tomorrow. And just to add on to what she was saying, we don't even go on the same lane as the other teams. We always have our masks on like these other sports. Like I don't understand how it's fair that we don't get to compete tomorrow. But yeah.
I would like to piggyback on that and say that bowling is a non-contact sport, and the WIPIAL has done everything in their power to make sure that we can compete as safely as possible. And I just think that it's not fair that we are being denied the ability to compete like we did last year. We have proven as a bowling team that we are capable of bringing good things for the school and representing Shaler area positively. And I just think that we should be given the opportunity to continue doing that.
Hi again, I'm Megan. As the teammate who is in the room, I just wanted to kind of pinpoint some of the things that the rest of my teammates, that was Sydney Lang and Lexi Pillick, who is my co-captain. The WIPIAL organization, or whatever you'd like to call it, they have taken so many precautions. None of us have been in school in the past 7 days, and by the Pennsylvania Department of Health, that is enough time that all of us we were quarantined. None of us had showed any symptoms, and we all have taken the precautions to try our very best to, as best as we can, as best as the sport allows us to take the precautions so that we can go tomorrow. Now, my only question is, if this were yesterday, were we allowed to go? Would we have been allowed to go yesterday or the day before that? Because this is tomorrow. I really was like my hot-headed self, and I came to the middle school. I was like, I'm going to try my best to get in there, and I got in here. And I just really would appreciate it if we could take a second to just think, because it is tomorrow, and I feel like as a senior, this is my last chance to actually make it to states. And like Ms. Lang said, if we do not go tomorrow, then we are also disqualified from regionals and then a chance at states. Last year, we made it to states with 3 seniors. Those seniors were above and beyond. They really helped our team. We lost those seniors. This year, our underclassmen and myself and my co-captain Lexi Pillick have all stepped up, and we have now made it back to WIPIALs, the championships. And now we have a chance to go to regionals, and then we have a chance of going to states. We are in.
Let them bowl. Let them bowl.
We do have.
Thank you.
We really do have a good chance of making it to regionals, and I just don't understand why, if this were yesterday or the day before, we would probably be allowed to go, because Shaler did not send out the announcement of the high school being closed and all of the athletics as well. Now, the half of our, like they said, all of the WIPIAL, when we're on the lane, they've split. The boys were yesterday, we are tomorrow, or the boys were, wait, I think the boys were today, and then the girls are tomorrow. So unfortunately, this year our boys did not get to go, but we're rooting for them next year. But if the boys were today, they would probably be going, and tomorrow's the girls. And as one of the team co-captains, we have been, all of our girls, we're always masked all the time. So that is one of our top priorities. We have the athletic director of the Shaler Area High School always watching our live streams for all of the events. She's done a great job of making sure that even when we are not social distancing, she tells us, she says, girls, you got to spread out. And we're like, okay. Next, we have also, none of us have been out of state in the past 30 days. And none of us have been to school in the past week. I am hybrid, but since the school was closed, I have not been there for the past week, and we will not be there the next week. Now, I must reinstate again that this is tomorrow, and we would really like the opportunity to go and be a great face for Shaler Area High School, that we can really represent the school in a positive way. And if you guys could give us the chance to do that, that would be awesome. Thank you. Sorry.
I'm gonna continue adding on to what she said. I'm Lexi Pillick again. What if we were like even just to get like rapid tests like during like the early morning tomorrow, and then we get COVID tests then the next day as well to make sure we don't have COVID, so that we're able to compete.
I'm sorry. Also, all of the girls, I've talked to all of them. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt anyone. The girls, we've all discussed about like after quarantining, if that's something that the school would like us to do, which we're all completely fine with. If we are going to this out of Shaler facility, the bowling alley, we are more than happy to come home and quarantine for 2 weeks. Just to keep it out, even though the Shaler Area High School is closed, we'd be happy to just keep our community safe. And when we do return, just trying to keep everyone safe. Thanks.
Thank you.
Is there any kind of guidance for that, or them being off-site, or, I mean, is there any difference? And I think my only question as an individual, and I hear everything you're saying, trust me, I feel for you. But my question in my mind is, what do we as a group say to any parent if they bowl and they can't play basketball or they can't wrestle? I struggle with that, because I try and, how do I answer that question? Because you haven't been in school, you're going to be off-site, you're willing to not come back to school for 2 weeks. Like, you're checking all the boxes. I get that. But what do I say to a parent that wants their kid to wrestle or play basketball or anything like that?
Wrestling and basketball and bowling are all incredibly different sports.
Yeah, that's
I would
apples
just
to
like
oranges.
to say that the levels of contact in those different sports are very different and should be considered separately, please.
Speaking from an athletic trainer perspective, they are ranked differently. There is contact sports, there's non-contact sports, there's collision sports. They all are treated differently from an athletic training and sports medicine priority situation. I feel like they should be treated differently from a contact transmission perspective as well.
Also, us bowlers, we always wear masks at all times. These other sports are taking them off a lot more than we.
I don't know. I kind of asked the question that Jim asked, like.
I don't disagree with them. I understand what they're saying.
Yeah, I don't.
Correct.
I don't disagree with them with the fact that they're, so they're going to go to remote instruction for 2 weeks. They're going to be quarantined at home. I mean, there's people that leave the state and come back, and
I think the question at hand is there room for case-by-case decision in the county guidelines, considering the high school has been shut down and is continuing to be shut down? And I don't think the issue is what they're doing. It's that they are representatives of the Shaler Area High School, which is currently shut down due to COVID exposure. And I don't know if it allows for case by case. I would assume not, but
I respect that. I respect that thought process. The offset is that other than, I'm sorry, your name?
Megan.
Megan. Other than Megan and stuff, the other students have not been in school. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm just torn with that whole.
Hasn't been in school since November. I mean, the whole building is shut down because of high levels of transmission.
Right.
Whether it's community or in school, it's high levels of transmission. And I don't know if someone has the answer or not, Dr. Aiken. I mean, that's what we need to know. Can a decision be made on a case by case situation? My assumption is that it's no, but I don't know.
I have a question. This is Heather Schneider, 4002 Weimar Circle, Pittsburgh 15209. Last week or earlier in the week, when we were getting notifications of more positive cases in the school, some of them identified or mentioned that the last time students were present in the building were during the time that we were on all virtual. So does that indicate in some way that there were exceptions that were already made that maybe were less safe than what these girls are asking for?
Yeah, well, what we try to do, the athletic department had some conditioning sessions for some athletes last week while the building was shut down. And in the midst of that, we actually had positive cases that didn't emerge from that situation, but around that situation. And in consultation with the Allegheny County Health Department, they basically said that we should not be having any activities at the time when our school is shut down. Now, if you look at the Department of Health and the Pennsylvania Department of Education guidelines, it is not as specific as what Allegheny County Health Department had recommended to us. And so, we're literally just trying to be consistent here. And I understand that bowling is not nearly the same level of contact as wrestling or basketball or swimming's not contact, but I recognize that there's very little contact. The challenge that we face is just, wrestling, and I understand the concern is it's not the same, it's different, but we have wrestlers that we're supposed to go to WPIAL qualifiers tomorrow. We have swimmers that are attempting to qualify for WPIALs as well. And we've had to cancel those activities.
So again, you're comparing wrestling to bowling, right? It's irrelevant, not a comparison that you can make.
I'm certainly
Can you call for a vote for the bowling team, perhaps?
As an innocent bystander without a player in this pool, let's use common sense. What's the risk of letting him bowl? It's a once in a lifetime experience. It's unfortunate it happened during COVID, but what's going to happen? Common sense.
Is there a way they can bowl without getting there individually, without going in a team bus?
It's working. Right now.
Not get it. I'm out. Sorry, I don't want to put you in a tough spot.
It is a hard spot. And I think it's something that
It's
a tough spot, but it's a good point, Tim. I mean, I said it's a tough spot, but it's a very valid point what you make. I mean,
if we can get them there individually, their parents drop them off and there's no locker room instrument.
There's always a way that we can do that.
how many students are we talking?
6. There's 6 of us.
To send a full bus, a big bus.
You can send a big bus, but I just want to, I feel bad for the basketball, swimming. I feel bad for everybody, but this is something that seems to be possible that can happen.
No, I get it. They're different. They're absolutely different. I'm just saying, like, that's what I worry about is immediately it'll be, well, you did this for them. Why aren't you doing this for me? Why can't you?
And I think they'd have to understand that it's a totally different sport.
Yeah, I don't.
You ain't jumping on each other, you ain't breathing on each other. This isn't wrestling.
They even swimming. Mask and.
And they should have showed up to this meeting then.
I'm sorry?
He said they should have
Saying
showed up.
that those teams should have showed up to.
But I can provide a concrete example of a child that plays lacrosse who's required to wear a mask while competing, not just on the sidelines, not just in the building, while competing. And because of the building being shut down, they had to pull out of the tournament that they participated with college coaches and, the ability to be viewed by a recruiter this past weekend because the high school was shut down.
I'd come back at that saying that they're bowling in a neutral bowling alley.
This wasn't on site.
Okay.
I'm just saying that this is what the administration's now going to face. Why did you let them go? Well, lacrosse had to cancel, and it's just going to keep snowballing. So it's not a contact sport, it's a level 2 sport.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to like argue with anyone, but lacrosse, basketball, wrestling, what are they doing throughout the entire time? They're touching each other. They're on top of each other. They're breathing on each other. And this is known things. This is just the sport. Bowling, we're spaced out. All the other teams are not even near us. It is us, the Shaler Area High School girls. We are in the lane, all socially distanced. This bowling alley, huge. I'm talking huge. Like they picked the biggest bowling alley I think they can find. We're all socially distanced. We're all wearing masks. One person goes up at a time. We all have our own equipment. We're not touching each other's equipment. We're not doing anything. I have 3 of my own bowling balls, my own shoes, my own equipment. We're not touching anything. You get up, you go, you move out to the side. I'm sorry. I just don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't really know like the process of what happens when other teams come to you and say, well, why didn't we get to? But this is our WPIAL, like I said, which will lead to states, hopefully. And if we don't, we're disqualified from it all, no matter if states is months away.
Megan, what time is the event tomorrow?
I believe that we were supposed to get out of school at 12:30.
Okay. So what we'd like to do is this, Megan, allow us to think about this, and we will contact our athletic director sometime tonight after the meeting. And then he will contact you guys in the morning first thing and let you know if it's a possibility, if we can make it work, or if we just simply can't. But we appreciate you being here tonight. We appreciate the comments that were made online as well. And I know it's difficult coming to the board meetings and hearing all this and being with all these adults, but you handled yourself very well. So thank you.
You did a great job.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
Hey, this is Sean Pillick, 349 Coleman Drive. I'm also the head coach of the bowling team. And I just want to say how proud I am of these girls for doing all this on their own. When I found out, I was running the high school boys championship teams today because I'm one of the executive board members of the WPIBL. So I do a lot of the championship tournament directing, as well as with I also do the regionals and states. And when I found out that they weren't going to be allowed to bowl tomorrow, I almost flipped the gasket because of what happened last year. So I just sent an email to them and I said, this is what's going on. And they ran with this. So I just want to say I'm really proud of them. And I will say that we are very, very safe with everything. Every team is on their own pair. Every person is masked up. We have zero spectators in the building. We didn't have any problems with that today. One person's streaming and coaches are there and the team's there, and that's it. So we're doing everything as safe as possible. There's no interaction between teams as far as fist pumping or anything like that. So nobody's interacting. So I appreciate what you guys are considering for us, and I hope you can let us know sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, we'll take a motion and a second to approve the committee of the whole meeting minutes from January 13th, 2021, and the voting meeting of January 20th, 2021.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Gapsky and second by, is that Ms. Phillips? Was it Ms. Dawn? Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Gotcha. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And a motion and a second to approve the following, requesting a motion to suspend any applicable Shaler Area School District policies in order to authorize the conduct of this special voting meeting of the Board of School Directors via telephone conference in consideration of the public health concerns and governmental directives arising from the COVID-19 pandemic. Notice of such action, along with the information as to how members of the public may access the telephone conference meeting, previously was posted at the District Administration Office and to the district website.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dr. Witkowski and second by
Mr. Fish.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And we need a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Petrovich and I believe second by Ms. Donahue. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll move on to the agenda and we'll begin with the education agenda. Dr. Black.
Thank you, Mr. Tunstall. Education items recommended for the board's approval this evening. Item A1 is to approve the Shaler Area School District calendar for the 2021-22 school year. Item A2 is to approve the PA School Code Section 1502 resolution, official local school district holidays for the 2020-21 school year as follows. November 26, 2021, December 24th, 2021, December 27th, 2021, and April 15th, 2022. Item A3 is to amend the 2020-21 school calendar as follows. Tuesday, May 18th, 2021 is primary election day and an Act 80 day in no school for students. This will replace the previously approved date of Tuesday, May 25th, 2021. Item A4 is to approve the district transition to 4-day per week instruction for students in grades K to 12 per the discussed timeline, following the guidelines of the Pennsylvania Department of Education and the Pennsylvania Department of Health regarding the recommendations for pre-K to 12 schools following identification of cases of COVID-19. Dates are tentative and subject to change based on the positivity rates within Allegheny County and the Shaler Area School District. Item A5 is to approve a lease agreement with the Allegheny Intermediate Unit to lease space at Birchfield Primary School for the operation of a DART program for early intervention services to preschool age children with disabilities beginning on July 1st, 2021 and ending on June 30th, 2022. Item A6 is to approve the first reading of the following revised policy, policy number 331, job-related expenses. And item A7 is to approve the second reading of the following new policies, policy number 218.3, discipline of students convicted or adjudicated of sexual assault, and policy number 253, dating violence. Those are the education items recommended for the board's approval this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Black. Any questions on the education agenda? Dr. Witkowski.
Dr. Black, based on discussion, does A4 need to be reworded, or will that completely cover the discussion that was had regarding the switching of the timeline with 7/12?
I think because it includes per the discussed timeline, which would include, obviously, as Dr. Aiken indicated, in the month of March, we will continue to revisit the secondary school timeline and transition.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I ask a question about the reimbursement policy and the language in this? So the reimbursement policy states the board shall reimburse staff who are assigned to work remotely or designated assignments.
Is it on here?
A6.
Oh, gotcha. Okay,
Sorry.
understood.
So my question is, can we have an understanding of what assigned means? Because if a building is totally virtual, then you're assigned to work remote. So that means that, according to this policy, that reasonable expenses may include, but not limited to, internet connectivity, telecommunication services, physical materials.
I mean, are we paying internet services and phone services now? If your job has been moved remote? And in that case, are you gonna start reimbursing parents for their internet connectivity and their phone service? It's just, I just wanna know like the assigned, because if you're assigned to work, it can be taken numerous ways. If your building's closed, you were assigned to work at home. So you're telecommuting. Just trying to put a little bit of perspective in here.
Any more specific on that? I mean,
again, it's relative to employees who are assigned to telework. The interpretation of that is not a temporary, but we do have employees that may be assigned that for a longer period of time that may necessitate that review.
You mean like, so are you saying like, Brian, just a example, so like teachers that are assigned for like Cyber Academy?
That could be a possibility, or employees that may have a medical accommodation that requires them to telework. That would be a process that we would review in accordance with the policy.
each one is reviewed individually for the policy based on the case by case, or on a case by case basis.
Is there a price cap on that? Because I could have Comcast and my my reimbursements might be higher than something else. But I mean, like, it's to your, you know what I'm saying? Like, is there a way that the language can be expanded and also like a reasonable price quote and things put on there? And to have more parameters? I mean, I just think that this could be taken, even saying case by case, it's sort of up to the discretion of the person that's looking at the case. It's not conducive to what everybody should be under. Again, there's not a structure.
And should language be put in this, I guess, to her point, should language be added to this in regards to a case by case basis and stuff like that?
They're going to be different, depends on the situation and what they're requesting.
And this is
what she's saying about a cap. I mean, I get that. That's,
and this is the first reading, so we can certainly make the necessary revisions for next month too.
Mr. Tunstall, why don't we just table this until they get it cleaned up?
I agree.
Well, this is just first reading. Is that okay, Mr. Fisher? As this is just first, if they rewrite it and then we review it again next month?
I would do that, yes.
So
just to be clear.
We don't need to strike it or table it. It's the first reading.
Right.
So
So
going
continue
into
as
next month, we would actually make the necessary revisions and share that with the school board and allow them to review it.
Well, then it should still be the first reading then, not the second.
If we revise it, it'll all be the first reading.
The first reading on the agenda. So you have the opportunity to make modifications before you adopt it.
Before the second one, which is when you would adopt it.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, fine. Dr. Aiken?
Yes, sir.
I have a question on A4, just for clarification. Since we're going to still be in hybrid until March 8th, am I correct? And if that is so, will Cohort A still utilize Wednesdays as an extra day for the days they've missed this year?
They're gonna, this next Wednesday, so a week from today, they're going to have an instructional day in school. That's the only Wednesday that we've identified at this point. And that's Wednesday, February 24th.
Okay. What happens to the Wednesday after, the next week?
Well, I think right now, we just identified one Wednesday. That's all we've done at this point.
Will we consider the day after, the week after?
I don't think it's necessary as we're transitioning into 4-day per instruction per week. So it's just my recommendation is just to stick with this 1 day right now.
I see no reason why we have to do that, but I understand. I'm not in agreement with that.
The high school are not included in that 4 day.
Next week, they are. It's K to 12.
Yeah,
No, after that, for the days that they missed. So like the 24th.
she's saying the high schoolers wouldn't go back 4 days right away.
Again, right now, I think with the high school, I think having mitigation days, and I don't think adding days at the high school right now is the right thing based on the transmission rates that we have at the high school.
That makes sense. Any other questions on the education agenda? Need a motion and a second to approve the education agenda items A1 through A3 and A5 through A7.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Fisher, second by Mr. Romack. Roll call vote, Ms. Ludwig?
Thank you, Mr. Tunstall. Mr. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Gapsky?
Yes.
Dr. Kukowski?
Yes.
Mr. Majewski?
Yes.
Mrs. Petrovich?
Yes.
Mrs. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Romack?
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Tunstall?
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Thank you. Now need a motion and a second to approve the education agenda item A4.
So moved.
I believe I have
Second.
Mr. Gapsky and second by Ms. Petrovich. And a roll call vote when you're ready, Ms. Ludwig.
Thank you, Mr. Tunstall. Mr. Gapsky?
Yes.
Dr. Kukowski?
Yes.
Mr. Majewski?
No.
Mrs. Petrovich?
Yes.
Mrs. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Romack?
Let me just say, I agree with the 4-day instruction. I do not agree with the timeline, so I'm a no.
Mrs. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Tunstall?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-2.
Thank you. And when you're ready, we'll move on to the personnel agenda, Dr. Black.
Thank you, Mr. Tunstall. Personnel items recommended for the board's approval this evening. Item B1 is to approve a leave of absence for Samantha Sullivan, a reading specialist at Scott Primary School, for an extension to her unpaid parental leave of absence from March 1st, 2021 to April 1st, 2021. Item B2 is to rescind the long-term substitute contract for Katrina Berger, a speech and language clinician at the elementary school in Reserve Primary, effective at the end of the workday on February 12th, 2021. Item B3 is to approve the long-term substitute contracts for the following employees for the 2020-21 school year. Rohana Olsansky, a graduate of St. Joseph University of Philadelphia, is a full-time 1.0 LTS librarian for Kate Wilcox at the high school, effective retroactive from January 27th, 2021 to on or about June 14th, 2001 at 85% of the master's step 1 salary level prorated. Kara Nordenbauer, a graduate of Slippery Rock University of Pennsylvania, is a full-time 1.0 LTS elementary education teacher for John Bruff at the elementary school, effective retroactive from November 5th, 2020 to on or about June 14th, 2021 at 85% of the bachelor step 1 salary level prorated. Ann Ryan, a graduate of Edinburgh University of Pennsylvania, is a full-time 1.0 LTS reading specialist for Samantha Sullivan at Scott Primary School, effective retroactive from November 11th, 2020 to on or about April 1st, 2021 at 85% of a master's step 1 salary level. Item B4 is to rescind the following supplemental contracts for sponsors for the 2020-21 school year at the middle school. Item B5 is to approve the following supplemental contracts for sponsors for the 2020-21 school year at the middle school and the high school. Item B6 is to approve the following 39 supplemental contracts for coaches for the 2020-21 school year. Compensation will be in accordance with the terms of and conditions of the collective bargaining agreement. Item B7 is to approve the following supplemental contract for a building support coach for technology for the 2020-21 school year. Compensation will be in accordance with the terms of the collective bargaining agreement. Reserve primary school technology, Janelle Biagirelli, retroactive to the start of the second semester, which is 50% of the supplemental contract. B8 is to approve the following 3 day-to-day substitute teachers for the 2020-21 school year. And item B9 is to approve 2 day-to-day substitute clerical employees for the 2020-21 school year. Those are the personnel items recommended for the board's approval this evening.
Thank you, Dr. LeBlanc. Any questions on the personnel agenda? Dr. Kwiatkowski?
Dr. Black, on B8, our 3 new subs, and this probably is a bigger problem than these 3, but we're bringing people into the district sometimes new, and what's being asked of them is probably a little bit more significant than has been in the past. Have we taken steps to ensure that if Mr. Tunstall goes out of his social studies room and Mr. Hoffman steps in, that all of the Google Classroom passwords are there and all of that stuff, just to make the transition for these subs easier?
So I would say, Dr. Kurowski, it's not seamless,
Okay.
but I would say at all of our levels, our grade level chairs and our department chairs have been very in tune with that and have worked with teachers coming in, particularly on long-term assignments, for an absence for a specific day. Oftentimes, as we have in a typical school year, there's class coverages, so it's a little bit different. But for our substitutes that are coming in for more long-term durations, oftentimes we'll have a overlap period with the teacher that they may be covering for. Our teachers are great in the fact that, if they're going on a leave and, the sub is starting, a couple of days later, those teachers will certainly stay in touch with that sub. Even many of them do during the duration of their leave. So it really is dependent upon what the situation is. I will say we are very proud of the subs that we have secured this year. Obviously, we can always use more. That's a theme that we hear across the county and, even across the country. But the substitutes that we've been able to secure and bring in to cover our vacancies have been, very high caliber. They've been dedicated to the job and they've done a very good job. Several of them, they did student teaching here. So we have several substitutes that we've onboarded that did, student teaching in our primary, middle school, elementary school. So they have been with us for the first semester of the year and have continued on. So we're proud of the work that our substitutes have done and how dedicated they've been to us.
Any other questions on the personnel agenda? A motion and a second to approve the personnel agenda items B1 through B9.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Romack,
Second.
second by Dr. Kwiatkowski, and a roll call vote when Ms. Ludwig's ready.
Thank you, Mr. Tunstall. Dr. Kwiatkowski? Yes. Mr. Majewski?
Yes.
Mrs. Petrovich?
Yes.
Mrs. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Romack?
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Gapsky?
Yes.
Mr. Tunstall?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. When you're ready, we'll move on to the finance agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Tunstall. The finance agenda tonight includes items C1, A through G, and items C1C bond proceeds. Two items have been added since the last meeting, and one was for the payment for A. Ferlino for the high school parking lot paving, and Nello Construction for Scott Primary School in the amount of $25,583. Item C2 is the cafeteria fund bond operating statement. Item C3 is to approve the Shaler Area School District audit report and financial statements for the year ending June 30th as prepared by Mardusel CPAs. Item C4 is to approve the additional ABC transit personnel. Item C5 is to approve to dispose of surplus equipment from the Buildings and Grounds Department. And item C6 is to approve the proposed 21-22 AIU Program of Services budget in the amount of $2,161,057. The AIU school district's total contribution to the budget is $1,811,545. The district's contribution to the Program of Services budget is estimated at $60,746 and will be final determined by the PDE according to our aid ratio and weighted average daily membership. And this concludes the finance agenda this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Ludwig. Any questions for Ms. Ludwig on the finance agenda?
Ms. Ludwig,
Yes, sir.
what's the Felino? Is it just money owed from the contract, or is there something else in there?
Yep, no, that is it. It is a payment for the period ended January 25th.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Ludwig, just again, thank you to you and your team for working with Mardusel through the audit and for the exceptional changes and improvements that you've worked so very hard to make throughout the finances of the district. You inherited a bit of a mess and you had an uphill mountain to climb, and we appreciate everything you do.
Thank you.
If nothing else, we'll take a motion and a second to approve the finance agenda. Items C1, A through F, and C2 through C6.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Fisher and second by Ms. Petrovich. And a roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Mr. Tunstall. Mr. Mayeski? Mr. Mayeski?
Yes.
Mrs. Petrovich?
Yes.
Mrs. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Romack?
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Gabsky?
Yes.
Dr. Krakowski?
Yes.
Mr. Tunstall?
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
Thank you. I need a motion and a second to approve the finance agenda item C1G.
So moved.
Second.
I had Mr. Fisher and second by Mr. Gatsby. And a roll call vote when you are ready.
Thank you, Mr. Tunstall. Mrs. Petrovich?
Yes.
Mrs. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Romack?
Yes.
Mrs. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Gabsky?
Yes.
Dr. Krakowski? Mr. Mayeski?
Yes.
Mr. Tunstall?
Yes.
Motion carries 8-1, sorry.
Thank you. The district would like to announce the following meetings. There'll be a Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting on Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021 at 6 p.m. There'll be a Committee of the Whole meeting on Wednesday, March 10th, 2021. The executive session will start at 6 p.m. and the Committee of the Whole meeting will start at 7:15. And on Wednesday, March 17th will be the voting meeting. That'll be at 7:15 and the executive session will start at 6:15. The board held executive sessions on February 10th and February 17th at the middle school library on Zoom and a virtual meeting platform. The specific reason for holding these sessions were to discuss the following matters. The agenda items were 1 teacher leave of absence, 3 long-term substitute teachers, supplemental contracts for sponsors and spring coaches, and 3 substitute teachers and 2 substitute clericals. The non-agenda items included personnel issues, student issues, and district legal matters. As allowed under the Sunshine Act, these meetings were not attended by the public. Is there any other business to come before the board?
Board members,
I'm sorry, what?
from board members.
Yeah, and to come before the board from the board. It's late.
One quick question is that Dr. Black or possibly Ms. Ludwig, it's a 2-part. One, when we move into 4 days, will lunches continue to be free for all students? And second, this is still all very new, will nutrition still be able to provide the bag and goes? If they have a whole building full of students in, will they still be able to provide the bag and goes for the communities those days?
I can answer that. So the first thing is it's free for the remainder of the year.
Great.
So that's first piece. The second piece, we were actually supposed to have a call earlier today with nutrition to talk about some of these items, but they actually had to cancel the meeting. So we'll be in touch shortly about what the grab and go will look like as we transition to more in-person learning.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I need a motion and a second to adjourn the business meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Gapsky, second by Mr. Romack. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Would the public like to speak on any non-agenda related items?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Good evening, everybody. My name is Sue Brost, and I live at 200 Circle Drive, Glenshaw. I just wanted to address a couple of the 2 articles that were in the paper recently concerning the sale of Jeffrey. I don't know where that stands right now, and I hope that I think it's really important that property stays within the district. Excuse me. That's a focal point of the community. So much goes on there. My children are out of the school district now, but we did so much there between fireworks and ball games and everything. And I just think that that whole area should stay the way it is. Whether it's made, excuse me, I'm a little nervous. It's a school right now, or, it's an empty school, I realize that. And I know the property, you want to get some money for it, but I just think it's really imperative that that stays within the district or the community, one way or the other. To sell it to a developer, I think is really wrong. To sell it to Mount Vernia, who knows what'll happen down the road with that? Will they maintain the property? Can they still do fireworks? Can you still do sled riding? Can you still have the overflow for parking for fireworks and baseball tournaments? It's just some of the things I think we need to consider, and that, it's all, whether it's the school district or the township, it's all of us. And I think we all need to work together on that.
So just a question, what do you think it should become?
I'd love to see it to be like a community, park of some, maybe there's a community center there, some kind of pavilions, like Hampton and all that McCully area. I know it's a lot bigger than what we have there, but I think it's similar. And I think if you change it and, sell it to somebody, who knows what they're going to do with it? Who knows what they're going to do with it 5 years from now? I just really think it's important that we keep it within the community one way or the other.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Good.
Hi, Keely again. And I too wanted to address Jeffrey, only I have a little bit involved. I moved to Shaler in 1997 as a transplant from the South Hills. And the people I grew up with, we had a rivalry. So I never told them I was from Shaler. I told them I was from Glenshaw because the people in the South Hills don't know that we're all together. I learned very quickly that Shaler is a great place to be. And one of the reasons for that is the roots that are here. My kids are the 5th generation to be living on our property. So those roots go deep. And another great thing about Shaler is Kiwanis Park. My kids have tons of memories at Kiwanis Park, as do I. The ball fields, the playground, the pool, the sled riding that Sue mentioned. In my 24 years living here in Shaler, I've never met one person who wasn't in desire to have a community center here in Shaler. And not that that's being promised, but with Jeffrey being for sale, it's an opportunity. Okay, my oldest entered kindergarten in 2005. That's when I first heard of the rumor that Jeffrey might become a community center. Way back then, this has been talked about. So this isn't new. And now it can become a reality. And I'm here tonight to represent the many community members who pay both Shaler Township and Shaler area school taxes who support Jeffrey becoming a community resource. I do not know what's happened in the past couple years in negotiations between the township and the school district, but I do know that I have spoken to both Tim Rogers and Sean Aiken, who have both said that there has been a verbal agreement that was reached for the sale of Jeffrey. And I'm here to encourage you guys as the school board to allow that to happen and to proceed and to let the community center opportunity become a reality. I know, I predict one of your hesitations is going to be, what about the taxpayers of Reserve Township and the borough of Etna and the borough of Millville? I believe strongly that they too will benefit from the selling of Jeffrey to the township, as it will provide an opportunity for that community center to become a reality. It will be just another bonus to living in Shaler, and will encourage people to want to move here and to stay here. And that is going to help the school district. The selling of the property at the price that was listed in the paper of $499,000 seems like a bonus and a benefit to the taxpayers, but in reality, it was a very, very, very small portion of what the school district's annual budget is. I believe I was told it was 0.005% of your annual budget. That's only 5/1000 of a percent. And it takes away, if that were to be sold for that amount, takes away the possibility of our future community center. Many years ago, the school district gave the ball field down by the old Sullivan to Etna Borough to help improve their community. Selling Jeffrey to Shaler Township at that discounted rate would be a similar gesture to Shaler Township. And although it is not actually written in the sales agreement from the Kiwanis Club to the school district when it was sold, or actually in the deed, the Kiwanis Club respectfully requested the Jeffrey property be offered to the township for community purposes upon it ending its educational purposes. I think we need to value that.
Where did you get that information, Mrs. Siding?
Kiwanis Park is the heartbeat of the Shaler area school district, centered between the high school and the middle school. A community center will make that heartbeat stronger. Let's make the community center a possibility by selling Jeffrey to the township. Let's get it done. They're willing.
You realize that there's absolutely zero proposal to put a community center there. In fact, there was an article from the township. Mr. Mayeski, if you can give me the date on that.
It won't ever be a possibility if the township doesn't own it.
I don't think it's ever going to be a possibility even if the township
And
owns it.
us, as the taxpayers, will then address it with them.
Ma'am.
But we have to take the step here first.
We agreed to a price with them. They never gave us a,
Okay, and like I said,
if they want to acquire the property, you should go to the next township meeting
Okay.
and tell them to put a proposal in for the price we agreed to, and then we will vote on it.
What's that price?
Right.
What's the price that?
It was $120,000.
Well, Keely, one other thing too, that we actually didn't talk about on the phone that I think you should know, and it aligns a little bit with Dr. Kukowski had just asked. On 3 different occasions, we've been approached by various groups that were interested in making that a community center. And we entertained offers, we entertained discussions, we invested hours of time in that discussion. We've been open to that idea since the very beginning. Like I said, I've had 3 different groups. It's never been entertained on the township side to make that a reality of what that would take. It would take a lot to make that work. And one of the groups probably had the resources, but for whatever reason, they backed away. The second group had great ideas, but then ultimately didn't have the resources. The third group was an idea that never materialized. So I would just say that if it was going to be a community center, would it be a great asset to the school district and the township of Shaler and potentially other places? Sure. And I don't think any of us are opposed to that idea. We've had groups come in and say, this is what we want to make it. And it's never come to fruition. And so I would just challenge you to ask that question, is why hasn't that come to fruition? Because it's not the district stepping in and saying, this isn't going to work, we're done working with you. And I would just, challenge you to really think about that and ask those questions.
Okay, the question, what I had heard was that there was verbal agreement on both parties, and then all of a sudden it was sold to that development. So that's why we're here, and a lot of us are concerned.
Oh, I'm referring back to the community center discussion, the comments that you made, because I didn't know that your push, because now,
Well,
we have,
Yeah.
other.
So we all want a
interests.
community center. Many of us have talked to Tim Rogers, and he waffles on what the possibilities are. But unless he has the property, then we cannot go to him and ask for anything because it's not his to do anything with. So we have to do it in baby steps. And the first step is to get it in his hands.
We understand that and we appreciate that. The offset is that they have to take that step.
Okay.
It's not for us to take the step.
Tell us all what you need us to do to make it happen.
Together, I don't
No, no,
understand.
There is no offer on the table right now.
We've had discussions, you have to understand is that there's a lot of dynamic involved with this. There's a lot of talk that's happened and stuff like that.
Several meetings.
Yeah,
Over
there's
months.
not been any action from their end on making it happen. So you could sit and say, we could sit and say all day and go back at each other and all that stuff. And I understand community center, it's not gonna happen. I mean, we've been told that 10 times over. And Mr. Aiken has a great point. Yes, we sent 3 people in the door. It's up to you guys if you want to have a community center, but we're selling a property. So from our standpoint, we're selling a property. What goes in at that property has no bearing on us.
Well,
Like
we understand that.
we can't control it.
No, we understand that. We're just, the way that articles were presented is that it was sold out from everyone.
And they were very one-sided and written by one side of the party.
That was.
And in addition,
That's why we're here to
the
get
whole
information.
Kiwanis Club thing, don't you think that if there was anything legal or anything binding that required us to revert that to the township when it closed, that it would already be gone?
And
So
it
that's-
was not, it
That's
was not legally
folklore and everything else, just like every other Titan tale, like Jeffrey's being given to the township, which I've heard too, since I entered the district. So
We're all in this together, whether you're for the township or you're for the school district. We're all in the same community, and we just need to work together to make it for the
and
betterment.
we
of the
represent
community.
4 communities. That's what the good people of Mount Royal Boulevard have to remember. So Jeffrey, this is the argument we get. Jeffrey was completed somewhere early to mid-60s. The merger happened in 71. Since 1971, there have been 4 communities, and their tax base is responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of that building. So as Keely mentioned, those other 3 communities have as much entitlement to that property as this one does. And I get it happens to be located
Right, but I
here.
mean, they're gonna benefit from it too. They
Oh.
come to the park for the fireworks and different activities like that. So I don't see that as, that they're not gonna benefit from it.
The park's still gonna be there.
Pardon me?
The park's still gonna
Yeah,
be
if
there.
you put a development in there, like an apartment building or whatever this real estate developer was proposing, that would be terrible.
I don't know where that came from either. That there was discussion about that.
Just ask you from that standpoint as to why that would be terrible.
Because because whether you put in an apartment building or $500,000 homes, it's not part of the park. It should all be together and it should be a park.
And
Okay, but what if and this is a question you have to ask the township. What if the township decided to put something in the park that wasn't park related. Would you be okay with that?
Well, from what I understand, they need parking for their vehicles. Is that what you're referencing?
No. I think you need to dig a little further from that.
Snow dome.
Well, let's put it on the table. What are they talking about? So we're not spinning our wheels and we can ask direct questions.
There's a salt dome. They'll construct a salt dome on it. You want a salt dome in Kiwanis Park?
No, not
You're
at
gonna get
all.
one.
Not at all.
I'm just telling you.
Biggest one in Western Pennsylvania.
You're gonna get one.
Well,
So
I think we can ask that question and.
that's not, this isn't our fight. This isn't our fight.
We're not here to battle with, we're not here to battle with Shaler
All
Club.
of our
But
fights.
it's not because ultimately, we had a school. The kids were moved from the school to another building and stuff like that. The school became vacant. At that point, what do we do with the school?
Just like a
We've had it for 3 years.
Mhm.
They've had every opportunity under the sun to come to us and acquire the building.
Right, we didn't even
They-
contract with the realtor until
They
like
should have
three.
not- we didn't talk to a realtor for what, 6 months ago?
Yeah.
About 11 months ago.
11 months. Sorry.
But still, that was
11
year
months
three.
ago, we finally talked to a realtor. So the first 2 years, we sat and nothing ever happened. So, we got, sent down a pigeonhole to say, we're gonna gift it, we're gonna give it, and we're like, what? So bottom line is that at that point, we put the property on the market. It goes up for sale. Who buys it? I have no control over. That's all up to zoning, building and zoning and stuff within the township and under their permitted uses of the property. I can't control it. I mean,
I
that's,
understand it. I don't understand the animosity here that I hear, between the two, the district and the township.
So we're not trying to express any animosity. I think it's frustration. And I think that's where we're at, because up to this point, it's been a very one-sided story. And we certainly are open to the ideas that are within the community. We want to do the right thing for the school district and the taxpayers of the Shaler Area School District. I recognize that, there's people that believe that the ANG real estate group that was actually coming in to purchase it, but that contract has been terminated. So that we're not moving forward with that. I'm not sure if you knew that or not. But I think that the key is that we want to find the right tenant, the right purchaser for the property. And if it's the township, as Mr. Gapsky said, they can certainly bring an offer to us. They know that ANG is backed out. Mount Alvernia has expressed interest. There's interest. I mean, anybody right now, we're certainly open to ideas and offers. And we're even interested in a fair price, as was stated, at $120,000. The property is assessed at over $500,000. We're not in it just to make money. I mean, we recognize that the money is important, especially during a pandemic. However, we have to be fiduciary stewards of school district and taxpayer money. And we're open to what the best use is. And if the best use wasn't ANG, as Mr. Romack stated, because of the zoning ordinances and everything, that's fine. Maybe it's Mount Alvernia, maybe it is the township, but we have to see these contract offers come in and actually materialize so that we can make a good decision in partnership with whoever that person is.
Yeah, I just think I just hope, as leaders, you guys are all leaders of the community, that together with the township, you guys can come together and do something that's right for everybody. And in my opinion, my kids are grown, but I have, many memories of going there. I grew up in Etna. So I understand it was all before the merger and all of this. My dad was on the school board when it was Etna, so I'm very aware of all of this. Probably, maybe more than some of you guys. Just as far as the history, I've been around a long time. And I just would hate to see it change. I know changes comes, but, just for the future, we have to have the foresight and just for the young kids that are coming, and we want people to come to the community. And just hearing the number of seniors we have, just my daughter graduated 3 years ago, and it's down, I don't know how many from 3 years ago. My oldest It's down hundreds.
Now, next year's class will be about 350, so it is a very low class. I mean, that,
Yeah, it's
it
just
is.
concerning to me when I heard that. My oldest daughter graduated, she's like 28, so 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I think she had 500 and some kids, so
Yeah.
we're down to two. Like, that's
283.
concerning to me as a, for the community. We want to keep things going forward, and.
I think one thing we have to do as a school district is remain consistent. And over the last 50 years, if you look at any school we ever closed, we sold that building. And we didn't, Etna didn't have the opportunity to buy Wilson Street. Etna didn't have the opportunity to buy the high school. Nobel didn't have the opportunity to buy Sample.
It's not, you're comparing apples to oranges.
No, I'm not. It's all the same thing. You're just seeing, yeah.
You've got one that's adjacent to a park, that's part of the community that everybody uses. Etna, I grew up right up the street from Etna High School. I went to Wilson Street. There's, it's a parking lot. You're right on the street. I know exactly where you are.
You don't think Etna wanted that property?
I'm not saying they didn't. I'm not saying they didn't. But it's a whole different setting. You have to agree with that.
I do not.
You don't.
No.
So the Kiwanis Club sold part of their property to the school district to
No, it
build
was
Jeffrey,
donated.
correct?
Where's the sale price? Was there, Matt?
What?
I don't recall.
I
I know it's sold, the deed sold for Verter
It was
Cross, I think $15,000 and $20,000, just read through the deed after our conversation.
I would think 50 years ago, they'd be smart enough to know that that school that they're just building right now is going to outlast whoever was going to promise it back, and they would put it in writing. And there is no writing.
It is not in writing. I was told it was mistakenly left out, but it was there.
Well, that's a bad mistake on their part.
Well, and we should still honor that, knowing that that is
Haley,
what-
come on, we don't know intent from 70 years ago.
Okay, but it is written in the township's deed when they bought Kiwanis Park, and it was the same information. So why can we not respect what? the
Wait,
township-
it's written in the township deed that what? Who does the property go to if the township stops using it?
It's supposed to go back to the Kiwanis Club.
Yeah, so, but that
And
was
it's
the
written in
park,
there.
that was Shaler Township's piece of the
Yes.
park.
Yes, and then the Kiwanis Club sold the school district a piece to build Jeffrey, and they had the same intent and the same request. If this piece of property gets sold to a developer, it is gonna benefit, if they build
developer.
22 units, it's gonna benefit those 22 people that buy that. If it gets sold to somebody with a community interest, like the township, it is going to service an infinite number of people for years and years to come. So I guess what we want to know, it sounds like you guys are all open to this discussion being started again with the township. We need to know what we need to do. We need to go to their board meeting and.
What
ask them
discussion
to
is that?
submit-
I'm just curious what you're looking to pursue. A community center?
Why does it matter to you what we want? them
And
to
that's
have?
the same thing you just said to Mr. Romack about it should matter that it's on an apartment building. I mean, what about those 22 families that might be able, at market value, someone started a rumor that it was at low income, which wasn't true. 22 families or whatever it was, 15 families that might be able to move into the district that might want to use Kiwanis Park. I mean, that would have been a community benefit as well to bring other
those
families into the
22
district.
families, 22 families, what about
But
the
you
rest
lose
of
the
us?
parking, you lose the overflow for fireworks, they'll limit what you can use the kids.
There's language in there for the township to take over the parking. They have to go to eminent domain.
Sell it for that. I just don't understand the benefit.
It really does sound like you guys are against this. I guess what?
We're not against it. We have no offer from the township.
To do to make it happen.
I think
We need an offer from the
Yeah,
township.
we just have to have a conversation with the township, and then they have to make an offer to the school district, or Mount Alvernia, or whomever has to make an offer to the school district. I think that's what needs to happen next.
I mean, we really can't do anything unless we have an offer, but.
You have to kind of question the thought process behind this though too. And I look at this from a different perspective. Is that if at this point, we don't even have an offer from somebody that has known it's been up for sale for 3 years and stuff, and we don't even have anything in writing from that party, then you have to ask yourself as to what truly is the intent in wanting to obtain that property. I'm on the same page as you guys. I'd like to see it used for greater purposes and stuff like that. I don't see apartment buildings being a bad thing. I can tell you in the real estate community, everybody said, somebody puts in nice apartments there, or high-end, or condos or something, they're all gonna sell out, and you'll see 22 homes open up immediately in Shaler, of hopefully bringing young families in here, because
I understand, I agree.
Right.
If I was looking for a place and there were an apartment right there, that would be a great place to buy, but it's not for the good of the community. It would be good for, like Peely said, for those tenants that buy that property, and that's it. It's not gonna benefit your children, your grandchildren, any of your children's grandchildren,
But
any of them,
it'll-
unless you yourselves go and buy them.
well, no, but it won't benefit 22 people, because that's what they plan.
22.
If they put up 50, it
How
would
many
benefit
families
50.
are in Shaler?
Yeah,
How many are in the
but the
community?
offset is that when you look at it from a bigger picture and stuff, there's not a lot of properties out there, especially in Shaler, where older, I say older, I'll say 55 and older.
Hey, FYI, we can't hear you.
Eileen,
Yeah, I can hear you, Jim, but I can't hear them.
I can't hear anybody.
Okay, and a parent texted me and said they can't hear it either.
Okay.
Same.
Susanna,
Yeah, I'm the same. I can't hear anything either.
okay.
I got bumped out of Zoom.
I think you're back.
There we go.
Can't hear anybody.
Can you hear them without him?
Oh, there you are. Is that you, Sean?
No, that's me.
Okay.
Mr. Gapsky.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
You there, Fish?
Yeah, he's muted.
Yeah, I'm back. I'm back.
Good. All right.
So we want to talk about this some more or what?
I think we missed about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, are we good to adjourn? Okay, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Okay. Thank you. Good night, John.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye, guys.